Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hi, welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. It is December 9th. If you pay property tax, it's due tomorrow. Probably. And I feel like that's the relatively standard last day for the first payment. The first of two payments. I paid mine this morning. How's everybody doing? It's been a whirlwind of video games and chaos around these parts, and yeah, I don't know. We're gonna get into it all today. Over the weekend, I was on the arcade pit, which was a lot of fun. Showing up over there, me and Seb Mall formed a team. Seb Mall of appearing on this podcast a while ago fame / streaming the world's preeminent Mr. Do streamer. I've been branching out lately. Not as much Mr. Do, though that's still, I have to say, he's primarily known as the world's largest fan of Mr. Do. And so you can see him comparing a lot of other games to Mr. Do. Like, is this better or worse than Mr. Do? Yeah, it's like a whole thing with him. I don't know. We appeared on the arcade pit and emerged victorious. Spoilers if you were going to go watch it. But his superior intellect and my superior drawing skills combined to form an unbeatable team. And that felt real good. That felt real good to get on that and have it go smoothly and all the other stuff. Anyway, yeah, it was a good time for sure. And yeah, that's our arcade pit is it was part of its 10-year anniversary, which is just a tremendous milestone, I think, for something like arcade pit to hit, because it just is like every facet of it is so involved and developed and like honed, like the technical behind the scenes stuff of doing like video game races over a live stream, and what the contestants have to get in their hands and configure to send that video feed back. They have made it. Smite has done an amazing job of making that about as turnkey as you could hope for something that is like a relatively complicated thing to accomplish, and it's really amazing to see that. Yeah, like all of that stuff. It's been really impressive, and it's one of the. I always found it to be like one of the most technically impressive streams on Twitch in terms of just like how, Smite and his posse pulls all that off. And it's a fun game show on top of that. And so yeah, that was but most importantly, we won. And so that's, so that also felt great. I want to talk about horses. We're going to talk about horses. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about horses, because there's kind of a lot to talk about with horses. There's more to talk about with horses than it seems like there should be, but not as much as for a different reason. Horses. No one can be neutral about horses. We'll be right back. Navigating the online world of like hair loss information can be a true nightmare. Everyone's got some little scheme and no. Cut through it with Hmmms. With Hmmms, you get access to clear solutions, expert guidance, and an online process that takes the confusion out of care. Hmmms offers convenient access to a range of prescription hair loss treatments with ingredients that work, including chews, oral medications, serums, and sprays. These are doctor-trusted ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil that can stop further hair loss and regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hmmms brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. There's no hidden fees, no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. You can think of Hmmms as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self with simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for real health concerns, all in one place. For simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/Jeff. That's hims.com/Jeff for your free online visit, hims.com/Jeff. Individual results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Featured products include compounded drug products with the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. So the thing about Horses, Horses, the video game, that'd be a great, if the full time, I have a baby looking at me through the blinds are drawn, but she's looking through the bottom of the window. I can't talk to her because the window's closed, but she's still looking at me. Go inside. I'm talking about the porno game. I mean, even calling it a porno game is a bit of a misnomer. Horses has stirred up a lot of controversy here over the last few weeks because it was pulled from Steam as well as the Epic Store seemingly right before release. But, you know, this is stuff that where the game had been submitted to Valve a while ago, and you know, so I think there were some early accusations that they were trying to capitalize on Valve's rejection of the game months after the fact, instead of like, oh, our studio is in trouble because Valve decided not to sell our game. And I would say on the sales front, this is probably all worked out in the favor of Santa Ragione, the developer behind Horses, because way more people have been speaking about Horses than would have been otherwise, which is kind of the interesting thing, because I think Horses the game and Horses the controversy are two incredibly different things. Valve was not explicit in their reasons for rejecting Horses, and then Epic was like, well, you know, come over here, blah, blah, blah. And then at the last minute, apparently, you know, apparently the Epic decided not to sell the game as well. And yeah, earlier today, now they're saying that, you know, they may not, the studio may, there may never be another game from Santa Ragione as a result of some of this stuff, which, you know, we'll see on that front. The game is currently for sale on itch. It's like $5. And it is a game. It is a game about a trip to a farm. You are a college student on summer break. Your parents decide to send you off to this farm for 2 weeks of work, and so you go and live with this farmer and do as he says. And what he says to do is care for the horses. And very quickly you learn that the horses are naked people with horse heads, big horse masks, clamped to their necks, and that they are people. And you are to feed the dog. The dog is a naked person with a dog mask on, bolted on. And so, you know, it is a very quickly a what the fuck is going on here kind of thing. And he gives you instructions like, under no circumstances, and I should say, the nudity is in this game is completely blurred out, pixelated. It's like downloading Japanese pornography. It's that style of everything is blurred out. And so there's nothing explicit per se in the nudity sense. There is sex happening in this game. One of the things the farmer tells you early on is like, the horses cannot fornicate, and if you see that happen, you need to tell me immediately. And then you walk around the corner, and sure enough, them horses are fucking. But it's people, and it's people locked in a corral. People that largely do not speak. And yeah, it's you know, and so you tell the farmer this stuff, and it very quickly evolves It's not a long thing. It's you would, if you were playing it slowly, it'd be like 3 hours long. It very quickly reveals itself to be like, this farmer is like, has basically, my reading of it is that he has trapped these people, he has found these people, and he has deemed them to be deviants, and he has done things to them to make them subservient, and basically trapped them on his farm. And that you are, treating them as if they are horses. They will go work the fields. If the horses don't move, you have to get out there and try to get the horses to move by beating them, and so it's, it's ruminations on, I don't know, ideas as wide as, just slavery, but also just like societal norms, really. It's like, okay, what is normal? What is not? It's not particularly subtle in any of this stuff. I would not say it is especially well done on that, on the concept front, right? Because of how blunt it is, but that's kind of the point in a lot of ways as well. And so it is not just some weird porno game or whatever. It is designed to be a bit of a thinker about this sort of stuff. And it is presented as if it is an Italian silent film. Like there's very little noise in the game. You get some like piano music during a particularly ridiculous sequence where you are riding on the backs of one of the horses. Because it's a horse, we ride the horses, right? And so you're riding around, jumping over hurdles and stuff, and so you hear the sound of a projector in the background. I think actually one of the without overly spoiling the nature of horses, so I don't know that I would say that you absolutely need to run off and play horses for yourself. One of the most interesting tricks it pulls is because, it is presenting itself as a silent film. It will show close-ups of the farmer's face as he talks, and it'll go rah, 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 and then it will show subtitles. It'll show a title card, like a card showing you what he said, like a silent film would do. And so there is a sound of a projector in the background for most of the game's runtime to kind of reinforce that fact. And there's a twist on that later on that I think is actually one of the most effective things the game actually does. It's the level of interactivity is relatively light. You can voice your displeasure with the scenarios, when a horse is caught fornicating multiple times, the farmer decides it's time to castrate it. And so, you as the player will push a button to sew up the hole after this man with a horse head, after his dick and balls are cut off. And so, that's gameplay. But really it's you kind of like walking up to a thing, and there's like one puzzle at the very end of the game that I think is actually like really poorly implemented, where you're trying to find the combination for a door code. And I think that is really poorly done. It's a neat idea that is not that given how button clicky and how kind of almost automated the rest of the game feels. It feels like very out of place in a lot of ways. The game is mostly interesting for the controversy around it, but there's also stuff like and some of this was potentially grown out of in earlier versions of the game, including one that Valve saw. There's a sequence in the game where gosh, I'll back up a little bit. Everyone in this world thinks that this is perfectly normal. Except for you, in theory, the player / college student. Everyone who comes to the farm, there's a priest, there's a businessman and his, I guess, wife, who shows up to buy one of the horses. Originally, in earlier versions of that game, that scenario with the businessman and the wife, that was a little girl. And so the idea was, maybe because they have this little girl involved in riding on a naked man's shoulders, like that's too much, or I find it hard to understand in the shipping game what is the thing that like someone saw and went, oh, we cannot, this is too much, we absolutely cannot sell this to people, we cannot have this on our store. Like there's nothing especially objectionable about it, especially taken in the context of other adult items that are sold on Steam. Like this feels like, you can call it ham-fisted, or like I don't think it's especially subtle. I think there are aspects of it that I would say are not especially well done. But like there's kind of nothing in here that other than like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, when you say it out loud, you're like, okay, well, in one sequence a horse is a woman is beaten across the back, and the gameplay there is that you're taking peroxide and cotton balls and sterilizing the wounds from the beating. Again, it's presented as so just, as so normal in the context of this world. Like that's what makes it weird, right? Is everyone around this farmer, everyone that comes to this farm, they know the score, they know what's going on, and the sequence with the woman is especially interesting. And again, there are no children in this game. This was something like the bit about children was something from an earlier build of the game that the developer changed and realized that this would be a better way to showcase this scenario and get the point across that he was trying to get across. And so there are no kids in this thing. The woman is riding around on the shoulders of one of these horses, and you're helping lead the horse around. And she turns to you and she starts talking, and she basically lays out the entire, like what feels like the entire point of the game. She just says like, I know these aren't real horses, but everyone has their place. My daddy, or my husband, or whatever, he runs his business and he's in his place. And you're here and you seem very nice here working at the farm, and this is working and doing this. The farmer knows his place in this relationship, and that all of this is basically saying like society is working to weed out the deviants, and that these deviants, which seem to be in some cases couples that were caught fraternizing or fornicating in the woods surrounding this farmer's farm. Though you're never really given the context to put it all together and go, okay, like you're never really given the context to go like, what's the state of this world? Is this something that is normal across this entire planet in this game? Is this something that only the people in this town and the three other people that interact with the farmer over the course of the game, are they the only ones who are aware that this is going on, and they go like, oh, this is totally okay? And so like I think that's, there's something kind of interesting, but basically, yeah, like the thesis statement of this thing is just like, look at this, man, it's society, and these people are sickos, and it really, that comes around the middle of the game, and the rest of it is just like, here's some kind of vague shock value, I guess I would say, though I don't know, man. I don't, again, between the way that this stuff is censored and the way that all of that stuff works, like I don't find anything here particularly shocking. It's the sort of thing that if this were to actually just be a film, you would go like, oh yeah, I don't know, man, some art film about guy, and you'd go like, yeah, I mean, it's not especially. It's really blunt about its message, and it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's not the most artfully done take on these ideas or whatever. And so it being a game almost feels incidental in some ways, because again, I think the level of interactivity is rather low. It is something where you are occasionally given like a thumbs up, thumbs down, or like smiley face or like frowny face. Like I don't think I'm into this. I don't think I like what's happening here. But that really doesn't, that'll change like a line or two of dialogue. And the thing, as far as I can tell, you know, I didn't go and exhaustively choose every choice, but I did replay the ending to kind of check and see if that one was any, it's like, you get like one more line of dialogue. If you frown at the end, it's just like, nope, you're one of us now. And you're like, okay, all right, well, and then it proceeds on with its sort of normal ending. And it all sort of just wraps up a little too neatly, and there you go. And it's the sort of thing that, you know, like, again, if this was a student film, a short film, or, you know, something of that nature, you'd be like, okay, yeah, all right. Instead, it is aping that style, and I actually think it does, again, with the projector in the background, the kind of silent film quality that it has. That is interesting presentationally. But there's stuff about it that is designed to be like relatively uncomfortable that I guess I just didn't find especially effective in terms of the framing. I think a lot of that comes down to, like, the farmer is given these cartoonish, you know, indie game, video gamey proportions where he's just got a big old butt and he's just like, blah, 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 and he's, you know, he over animates in some ways that you're just like, okay, yeah, look at this goofball. And so there's this, I don't know, some of that stuff just doesn't work. It's mundane, and that's part of it, right? Like, part of it is meant to be, hey, this stuff is, as far as the farmer is concerned, this is the most normal fucking shit on the planet. We're looking after these guys, and they're scum. And here, this is the thing we do. And no one bats an eye except for you, the outsider injected into this scenario, except, like, you know, even as he's explaining himself, you know, like, you like, parts of it, you're just like, well, I'm gonna say yes and smile to this, because I don't think I would like what would happen if he was against me, which I think is, you know, an interesting kind of outcome here. Like, there is a quiet menace to a lot of this stuff. But, you know, I think, like, the way that people are characterizing horses as like a porn thing or as a big adult thing, like, it's super not. Like, the nudity and even the sex contained in it is not designed to come off the same way as, like, you know, Panties Clicker 3 or, you know, whatever dumb shit is all over Steam. And so it's nudity used for different purposes, right? And I don't know, like, there are aspects of it that I think are interesting and relatively effective, but it's like it just feels like a relatively blunt way to kind of convey this message, and I don't think it does that all that well. The controversy around it has been the kind of interesting, not interesting. I actually, no, interesting sorry, it is the exact fucking opposite of interesting, but it is bringing out some of the dumbest arguments in the world. People that are just like, oh, well, this is, are we really losing anything by banning this sick filth? And just like people that are just like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah. You know, like, I don't necessarily think horses is an especially great example, and it's a relatively underdeveloped space, I would say, in games. Not that there are no art games or whatever, but, like, you know, the attempts at shocking behavior without it being some, like, racist hate fest on top of that. It feels like whenever anyone tries to shock people in games, they're going like, look at me, you're gonna cancel this game because it's so edgy, you know, like a lot of it seems like it's coming from that point of view, and this is not that. But, like, yeah, I think it's been interesting to see people who go like, this should be banned, and then the bit of information about, like, oh, you know, in some earlier build of the game, the woman in the game was younger looking and whatever else. Like, I think that, you know, has kind of confused a lot of the situation, because there are some people that think that that's in the game, and it's not. It, you know, it has never been in a version of the game that's been sold to people. And so, but people are still kind of sticking to that for whatever, right? And so I guess like for me, a lot of this comes back to, I don't really see any reason that this should be banned. I don't understand why Steam would specifically take action against this unless there's some lingering fear about, but they didn't really, they were okay throwing some of the payment processors under the bus last time this shit came up. And I don't think they've really come out and said anything too specific about this, about the contents of it rather. And so I go like, well, is it because it is, do the horse heads lend it a bestiality like quality, and are people trying to read that into it? Because I think that's a very incorrect reading of what's happening here. And I think that's a very that I feel like that would be a very backwards way to look at horses. But I can't, having played through it now, I just don't really see any reason why this is getting banned from storefronts. And so I think that's a little weird. And I wish that I wish that aspect of this was made more clear. And I get why Valve and I don't think Epic necessarily like laid out a ABC list of why we did this. But I wish that there was something a little more kind of definitive out there about here's where this game ran afoul of this. On a service that has like a large number of adult games for sale on the platform, and so like if it's something where they go like, oh, we think this is too edgy, too weird or whatever, I guess and everyone's going to have a different perspective on that. I think this is the opposite of edgy. I think that a lot of it is, attempts at being shocking, and perhaps this is just, I have spent too many years on the internet to be shocked by much of anything anymore. But like I look at this and go like, yeah, okay, you made your little art thing, and it's neat in a very specific way that you made this. For me, it's the presentational stuff around like the silent film stuff, as well as occasionally when you do a thing like, there's a little bit of FMV in here. There's a little bit of FMV in here that I think is kind of interesting. Like, when you're, scooping food, or you're doing, there's like a few different things where, when you go to drink something, there'll be like an actual little black and white video sequence that plays out. And I think there's something like, I don't know, like I think that it helps the thing be unsettling. And I think, if your goal is kind of to be, this like unsettling, make you think thing, I think there are aspects of that I don't think horses is wholly effective on that front. But like, that doesn't mean they shouldn't try. That doesn't mean that they should, so I give it to them for making something. And I think it's, again, this is something that would have completely flown under the radar if not for all of the conversations around why did it get banned and what happened here and why is this a problem, and then some people coming out and saying like, this is disgusting, and you're like, what? Have you seen what's out there? Have you seen what is like, 2 clicks away from the thing you're finding disgusting? Have you seen the environment in which this exists? Like, this is not something that is being like sold to children. It's like, it's kind of whatever, man. So yeah, I don't know. Like, it's horses is interesting. I don't necessarily think that it's something that you need to go out of your way to play. Unless you really want to see it for yourself and know, and have an opinion about the controversy or whatever, or have an opinion around the way it has been banned and all of that. Because I don't think it is. I don't think it is especially well done for what it is attempting. That has some neat ideas presentationally, and the rest of it is just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, horses. there you have it, horses. I've also been playing a few other games that have like significantly less nudity in them, including This Ain't Even Poker, Ya Joker, which is coming out on Steam in a couple of days. This game seems, let's call it opportunistic, I guess I would say. This is an idle game that uses the rules of poker as well as upgrades that help you subvert the rules of poker in your favor. And so it's like automatically dealing hands of poker. And you are buying upgrades and also modifying the deck to kind of try to shift the hands of poker further and further in your favor. It is the font work and a lot of the, again, the font work specifically, but like there is definitely a Balatro, there is, let's call it a Balatro influence. But this is like way less, again, this is an idle game. This is a clicker, where like the first thing you buy is the ability to not click. And you are upgrading your hands so that they'll be worth more money. I put I left it running for a while because I needed a bunch of money and left it running for 10 hours or so. And it has some neat ideas, and I got to the end of it and I was like, man, this feels like it needs 9 more layers of weird shit. Because the idea is like, oh, there's an evil jester and he has trapped you and you need to make 1 billion coins, 1 billion gold in order to beat him. And so you are playing and you are resetting to get more of an upgrade currency that influences an overall multiplier, and then you're buying your upgrades again, and then you're meeting a fairy who does this, and then the fairy helps you buy runes that upgrade. Eventually you're replacing your suits of cards, you're replacing spades and hearts with arcane symbols, and you're adding jokers to each of your individual, you end up with like 9 different or 10 different poker hands flipping at any given time, and so it's just happening in front of you. And it is as idle games go, one of the most slot machine like experiences you could have out of one of those, because there's constantly gold coins flying around the screen and all this other stuff. Like it is a thing that, for as much as it is, they sat down and said, let's make it look, like a little bit like Balatro, a lot like a Balatro at a glance. It does not have the mechanical depth of that game in any way, shape, or form. And so don't go into it looking for that. This is not another Balatro. It is not going to scratch that itch. It is an idle game. I think it is something that like it is off on the right foot, and then it was kind of over before I knew it, and I was like, oh, okay, I got a bunch of runes and that's that, huh? Okay. And it's sometimes it's nice to have one of those that is like over quickly, instead of like a lot of idle games, especially ones that become popular, and this isn't out yet, so we'll see, but it feels like a lot of the idle games that gain an audience, they spend years like attaching and bolting on new systems to those games for years in ways that make them even more arcane and hard to understand over time, because you're just like Revolution Idol is a great example of this if you've played it, where like they added, like eventually they're just like, now we've added a system where you can get zodiac symbols, and this makes it so you can also increase this percentage, and so if you reset everything that we've released up to this point, you can get some zodiac symbols and then build that up, and then eventually you can reset all of those because now we've bolted on another layer on top of that one. And like these games sometimes just should stop. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain aspect of them where you're like, okay, yeah, no, I think I see what you're going for here, but like you also have bolted 9 too many systems onto the end of this game because you have people who want it. And I guess it makes sense because, you have people who like an idle game and want to stick with it for even longer, and they need to find new upgrade currencies, new prestige models to keep you resetting it over and over and over again. And at some point that's just too much. At some point, that is just too much. Let's take one more break. We'll come back. We'll talk about some Metroid Prime 4 after this. I had a roommate who decided he was going to stop smoking and start vaping, which was, fine until he got it in his head that vaping in the house was going to be totally fine. We had this microfiber couch that smelled like cotton candy, Red Bull. It's some horrible thing. I think he eventually went back to smoking cigarettes. It's hard, If you're part of the 50% of people who attempt to quit vaping every year, you need to equip yourself with the right tools for the job. And there's no better tool to break up with vaping or smoking than Fume, the award-winning flavored air device loved by over 500,000 customers. Here's why. Fume is twice as effective as the solutions you've tried, and it's backed by lab-tested safety studies, so both doctors and customers agree Fume is the good habit, and it's 1/3 of the cost of your bad habit. Fume is a flavored air device. It's this cool weighted, little clicky, it's got an airflow valve on it. So you got to turn to determine how much flavored air you're getting through it. They got these little flavor pouches in a wide variety. The peppermint is nice and invigorating, but they've got a wide array of different flavors for you to choose from. And so it's not just like, hey, you're kind of inhaling some flavored air and getting that, but it's also this cool little fidgety device, and the rituals and the things that go with smoking and vaping can be such a big part of that. That replacing that part of it with something roughly equivalent is also part of the whole scheme. There's a satisfying weight to the whole thing that is pretty nice. It feels pretty nice in the hand. Start your guilt-free journey with the good habit and use code Jeff to get a free gift with purchase and begin your overdue breakup. Head to tryfume.com/Jeff. That's TRYFUM.com/Jeff. And use the code Jeff to start the good habit today. They have opened Samus's third eye. That's, as far as I can tell, is just about everything that's going on in Metroid Prime 4. I got my hands on this just yesterday, or the Switch 2. Anyway, I started playing it yesterday, and so I'm not like mad deep into it. It's interesting. I don't know. I've been traditionally very cold on Metroid Prime as a concept for a few different reasons, like in terms of it, just, what I want out of Metroid is not a first person version of it. And I remember trying to play Metroid Prime 1 back in the day, and just like the transition to the 3D map and all of that stuff is just, it just didn't work for me. Part of that is control based, as they would kind of go on and release the rest of the trilogy and all of that. I like first person shooters, and I like first person shooting, and the controls in Metroid Prime were never really conducive to that sort of action. And it's because Metroid Prime is not a first person shooter. It has shooting in it. It is a first person game, but obviously it is much more of it is trying to bring the search action gameplay of the 2D games into a 3D space. And this is something that I eventually came to respect, I guess, probably around the release of the remaster for Switch. And seeing like, because I think, you've seen Metroid Prime hacked to pieces over the years by people doing weird stuff with emulators, and you're like, now you can play with a mouse and keyboard, and I never really messed with any of that because, like, ultimately I just didn't want to play Metroid Prime. But when Nintendo released the remaster, I was like, okay, I want to see them re-engage with this, and they've added like a more modern shooter control scheme to this. What's going on? Like what is this all about? And for me, that is actually like where a lot of this stuff kind of finally clicked for me.
in terms of like understanding what they were going for. Because, you know, at the time when those games were coming out, you know, there were legendary first-person shooters coming out on PC. It's you know, it's not unlike the way I feel about something like GoldenEye, where it's just like, this is neat, but it's not, you know, it's not scratching the same type of itch that these other, you know, kind of better first-person shooters are doing. And you know, since I have that context, I'm, you know, like I'm looking for something different out of this game than they are. And so it was something that, you know, kind of re-engaging with it when the remaster was released, like finally a lot of that all clicked. And I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you can lock onto targets and sometimes the lock on doesn't work and you know, because enemies are moving a little bit, but really it's not about you aiming at the head of a fucking space pirate and pulling the trigger over and over again. You know, like, it's just not, like, that's not the game they're making. They're making a game where you go around and scan the environment, and combat is not the primary verb to engage with this universe. It's scanning and puzzle solving. And yeah, you need to blow things up. You need to fight bosses to get upgrades. You need to blow up guys to get stuff. Sure. Like, you know, it's not like it has zero combat, but the combat is largely in service of you gaining the abilities you need to get through the locked doors and the other parts of the game, you know, much like the search action games of yore. And I came to appreciate that when the remaster was released and played quite a bit of that. And I did eventually kind of fall off it, but I think that's mostly because there were just other games coming out. But it was the first time that I felt like I understood, from just a mechanics perspective, the appeal of any of the Metroid Prime games. And so, you know, Metroid Prime 4 is that, you know, like, it is, the controls are not dramatically different from that remaster in terms of, you know, playing it with dual analog sticks and the way you would do it on a Switch 2. You can play it with mouse controls, which I think is interesting, but not necessarily vital, again, because combat is not the primary objective. Like the smoothest combat, the most accurate aim in the world, like, you know, these aren't the things you need to succeed in a game like Metroid Prime. And so, you know, like, that stuff is interesting because it's there, but you kind of, it's just not, it's not really why you're there. It's a great option for people that really, really want it. But I think that's like I've come to feel like the people who want mouse controls, the people who really wanted Prime Hack and all of the other stuff over the years, those people were missing the point all along in some fashion. Because this was never meant to be that. You were never meant to, like, the game was not developed around you needing that level of fidelity. Like, you know, the game was developed for the controls you had in front of you, and the idea that this was more than just walk into room, shoot all enemies, you know, that it was about something that I would hesitantly call like a little higher minded than that, I guess. But that said, you know, like, there's stuff about the combat in Metroid Prime 4 that does kind of rub me the wrong way, and it is the way that enemies, it has lock-on targeting, but it does not automatically lead your targets. And so you're given this weird, is it Crackdown that did this? Where, like, you have lock-on targeting, but then you can kind of free aim while you're locked on, and you can use the right stick to kind of adjust your aim while locked on. And so you can use this to lead targets, or if there's specific areas that you want to target that is not being hit by the lock-on targeting, you can kind of do that. And you know, this is not new to the franchise either, but this is the part about the shooting that I don't think I like. It's not that every weapon I fire should automatically hit. I don't necessarily want it to automatically lead targets and automatically hit all this stuff. But I think it's that the free aim, and maybe I can adjust the sensitivity and make this feel better, but all of the aiming stuff feels really slow and sluggish, and in some cases not quite up to the task. You know, the game is not asking anything truly demanding of you on a combat level, really, but it is things where the controls don't feel like they're up to even the task at hand that they are giving you. And so I find that to be a little bit off-putting. But the thing I actually find very off-putting about Metroid Prime 4 out of the gate is a lot of the story stuff. And this has been a thing that I have long since, like, that I have never come around on that. I think at this point, I will probably never come around on any of the story stuff they have done in the Prime games. And the whole, as they have expanded on the lore of Metroid and tried to make Samus more of a, a somewhat more rounded character, I suppose. But like, there's just the particulars of the universe and all of this stuff is just so dumb. Like, every revelation is worse than the last. And so Metroid Prime 4 opens with you like... Metroid Prime 4 opens like fucking Halo. Like, it's you and a bunch of human soldiers, and they do the thing that like Halo does, where like when you walk in a room, people go, "It's Samus." Samus is here. Oh. Or Doom 2016 did the same thing. Actually, Doom the Dark Ages does this as well, but I think does it a lot better. And so, like, there's this aspect of, like, I know that they have had Samus speak in little bits and pieces, and but, like, she's largely quiet, and so I think some of that stuff doesn't come off. There's just, like, conversations that you have in this game that you're just like, just fucking talk. Just fucking talk. Just get it over with and fucking talk. And this game does a thing where you fucking touch an artifact. Silex is invading. Everyone knows Silex, right? The famous Metro. There's every aspect of lore and character names and other characters contained within the Metroid. If it ain't Ridley or fucking Kraid or perhaps the Mother Brain, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear I don't give a shit about any of these fucking dopes that you came up with. So Silex invades to try to steal some artifact, or he's invaded. Who knows? You collide with the artifact and you're whisked away to some fucking future tower with a bunch of monk holograms that tell you about the planet so you just are magically teleported to this desert world with 5 locations. Each location has a key, and you need to find the master teleporter, and you need the master teleporter key, and you need to get this, and you need to get that. And so you're kind of sent off on this multi-part quest to regain the pieces of the keys in order to do your thing. And so it's a lot of like holograms of alien monks referring to you as the chosen one. More like the Chozo one, am I right? This time she loses all of her powers, and when she gets them back, they're all psychic abilities. You go through a part of the game where you can't scan anything because it's all in some alien lane. You're like, I don't know. You're like, I don't know what material this is made of. There's nothing in the database. I don't know what this is. What the fuck am I looking at? And then you interface with a translation crystal or some fucking magic thing, and then suddenly everything makes sense to you, and you can commune with the monk holograms. And yeah, I don't know. Then you can kind of you go around and scan stuff on this alien desert world, for a world where you have like very little idea as to where we've gone or why. It sure is weird that in the first like half hour or so you encounter another human who is there with a ship, who's like, "Oh, Samus, thank God you're here to save me from these weird monsters in the jungle." It's just like fucking crazy. And then he's like, "Oh, I got something for you." And like, hang on, let me open up this giant like freight container that I'm standing on top of. And then he opens up and it's a missile tank. And you're like, now you got missiles. Like, okay, why would he have those? Everyone knows Samus already has missiles. I guess like everyone already knows that she's always losing those fucking missiles every fucking step of the way. And so everyone just keeps some base level Samus shit around. But everything you find after that is a psychic ability. You get not boots for standing on platforms. You get psychic boots for standing on psychic platforms. You don't get the bomb upgrade. You get the psychic bomb. And the psychic bomb can be used to form psychic motes that you can then use your psychic control ability to guide into receptacles that will help you to unlock doors. She literally does this. She literally does the like 2 fingers to the side of your head psychic thing. It's because now your scan visor is psychic visor. You need to turn on your psychic mode so you can see the things you can manipulate in the world. And she literally puts 2 fingers to the side of her head like she's fucking Yuri Geller's gonna sue Nintendo again. Samus out here bending spoons. It's fucking stupid. Like that specific aspect of all of this stuff I think is incredibly, and she's got a big jewel on her forehead now that glows, and so it's like her psychic eye is open, the third eye is open, and now she can, and so like a lot of that stuff is fucking dumb. A lot of that stuff is really fucking dumb. And then aside from that, you do Metroid shit. I don't know, you got maps, like I would say it is pretty linear for a game that is eventually going to, you know, give you a motorcycle in a desert open world and all of that. Like, you know, it's a game that feels like, and so the human character Miles McKenzie, like a lot of the pre-release coverage has been, you know, like really fidgety, hand-wringy about like, oh my god, I hope this game doesn't have this fucking guy in it the whole time. And he tapers off pretty quickly. And you know, you can talk to him when you need to, or whatever. But I think, you know, the thing he does when he's with you is talks a little too much about the solutions to puzzles, not quite to the like God of War, your son has all the answers kind of degree. Like it's not that far gone. But like it's a game that feels, and again, I haven't finished it, and so, you know, like maybe there's stuff later on that you know, kind of helps open this up a little bit, but the game just feels very linear, and the game feels like it has to go out of its way to say, hey, listen, this save station's here, and you should go here, and then you need to go and you need to do this, and so here's your main objective in this space, and you need to go do this, and then pick these things up, and like there's just a lot of it feels like for a game that, you know, I feel like we have largely thought of as being about the isolation and that like that thick atmosphere that comes with being completely alone. The way this game seems like it is afraid to be quiet for long, like it always pops up on the map and go, this is the place you need to go. And this is, and if you're not heading in that direction, you know, this, you're gonna get a little like, hey, what do you maybe like? I think there's a lot of that stuff in here that you know, it's stuff that certainly a lot of games from Nintendo for sure have been afraid to leave the player alone to their own devices, have been afraid to, you know, let players solve their own puzzles and whatever. It's not just Nintendo. I mean, you know, something like God of War is a great example of that. The Horizon games, like Sony first party stuff, has been a little heavy handed with the unasked for assistance as well. This feels like it is kind of a little bit closer in that direction. And I wonder why they're, what, you know, like, I wonder what the goal is here. Like, to me, this seems like the last Metroid Prime game, and I don't know what how well it ends, or, you know, if it ends on a, like, this is a new trilogy for Metroid Prime. But like, when I think about the quality of the experience, the way they marketed it in a very specific way to try to go like, what, this is a guy in it? What? No, I don't know. What are you talking about? Until the very end, when they're like, by the way, there's a guy and a motorcycle. Like, there's a fear in the way they spoke about this game pre-release, which, you know, for his, you know, the game being restarted and how many years it was in development and whatever else, like, it's understandable, right? This feels like a release, and again, I, you know, like, maybe I'll change my tune on this as I play more of it, but qualitatively, this feels like a situation where they are probably happy to have this game out the door. It checks off a long, lingering spot in their portfolio that was probably relatively painful to develop in some capacity over the years, like, to keep this thing going, to restart it, to move it, to, you know, like, the things that game went through over the course of its run. I can't imagine that there is like a crew of people on the business side or on the development side that are just like ready to line up and go, let's fucking do it again. And so I wonder if this ends up being the last Metroid Prime for ever, or at least for the foreseeable future. When we think about Metroid as a franchise that in Japan that they have not really given a fuck about to any you know, massive degree, and just the kind of the nature of Metroid inside the, you know, inside of the Nintendo portfolio or whatever. Like, I wonder if this is just like, okay, we did the thing. This one was painful, but we got it out, and now let's not fall back into this trap again anytime soon. You know, let's just forget about this one for a while, a good long while. And you know, that's my guess on it. It's not, you know, I don't know. Like, none of it seems like it is an especially bad game. I think it like the issues with it, and kind of, you know, from talking to some other folks who've played, you know, more of it than I have, and you know, it seems like that the issues with it are not necessarily core to the experience. It's just like a lot of the stuff around the edges, like, oh, this writing is not well done. This, you know, the hand-holdy nature of it. Like, there's aspects of it, like the linear design of it, and the way that they make it so you can't listen to music on your motorcycle unless you buy an amiibo, which sounds fucking insane. It's the sort of thing that, like, when you hear someone say it out loud, you're like, that can't be. That's surely that can't be. Oh, that is okay. That is okay. Great, thanks. Yeah. Nintendo has still not figured out what the fuck to do with amiibos, and it feels like the vast majority of situations where they do, like, use them in games, it's been poor. It's been like, I don't know, rub this amiibo against your controller to get, like, power-ups that you shouldn't have, or bypass this, like, you know, this part of the economy where we want you to save up money to buy maps for this or that, you know, or like it seems like in a lot of ways the best use of an amiibo is like to store your settings for some kind of multiplayer thing, like the Street Fighter amiibo, the Smash Brothers amiibo stuff seems like not vital to the experience, but none of it should be vital to the experience. It should be additive, but not too additive, right? And so saying like, oh, like this desert sequence kind of sucks unless you had some music to listen to, and you can if you give us $40. I grabbed my Luke amiibo, which is the only amiibo I keep within reach. And I tried my Luke amiibo in Metroid Prime 4, and it basically said, you should fuck off with this. Get this the fuck out of here. I do have I have an older Metroid because they've done Nintendo would send amiibos out, so I have like more amiibos than anyone should have, and then I left them all sealed because I don't fucking need these fucking things. And so I have like sealed Metroid amiibo somewhere that I wonder if that does anything. If the other older, because they're not the new ones, because I know they made massive, way more expensive amiibos for this game, which just seems like a real fucking racket. I don't know. I bought the Luke amiibo because it's cool, because Luke is cool. This was the first time I had ever touched it to a console. I don't have any desire to use my Luke amiibo in a video game. He's just there so I can go, there's that fucking guy. Look at this fucking guy. Get a load of this fucking guy. So, whatever, right? Metroid Prime 4 doesn't necessarily seem like I don't think it's a bad game from the time I've spent playing it. It just feels, again, like a little, like it doesn't feel sure-footed. It feels like tentative and afraid in some ways, afraid of being quiet, afraid of letting the player figure it out. Like there's just stuff here that you're like, this is like it's like they realized that they weren't happy with how many people cared about Metroid Prime, and they went like, why don't we try to make it easier for people to get through? Why don't we try to, who cares? Like, right? Otherwise, this is going to sell exactly X number of copies, and it's like the Metroid Prime remaster sales minus, X% based on, like whatever. They could probably figure it out, right? They're not making new Metroid fans in this day and age, I assume. And so I guess like on some level, I wonder if they just decided to experiment with that aspect of the game specifically to go like, is there a way we can get people into this? Because if not, we're going to stop making them either way, unless we can find a way to get these things to, to be a more prominent franchise in our portfolio. Why do we keep doing this to ourselves? This is crazy. But yeah, I don't know, like from a writing perspective, a lot of the dialogue, when the game does have dialogue, has been pretty rotten. And the way that they just took a lot of Samus's abilities and just wrote the word psychic before them. Come on. What are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? The other thing is something that I block out of my memory every time it comes up. I've done a really good job of blocking this out because this is not the first time I've encountered this knowledge, but every time it hits me like it is something brand new. And it hit me yesterday while I was playing the game because it's one of the first things that the fucking Miles McKenzie, the engineer that you find, it's one of the first things he says Samus's full name, and he says, "Samus Aran, is that you?" And I can't live in a world. This is it for me. This is the last episode of this podcast, unless I can manage to forget this again. There is no world for me in which her name is pronounced Aaron and not Aran. I can't fathom it. I can't, like, it is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Is it like, this seems like a crime? The thing you've done here? I don't understand why, like, what is wrong? Hey, Aaron, why don't they just call her Aaron at that point? Hey, Aaron, whatever your name is. Hey, what are you doing? Like, what is all, like, the fuck is wrong with you? It's just like, I don't, and so, like every time someone says that out loud, it feels like a crime is being committed, against my childhood. It feels like someone is really trying to like ruin some, like, we're really going to try to bury this Metroid thing as deep as we can get it. We're going to put it underneath the factory. This is just keep digging, man. Yeah. Samus Aran. Yeah. Good. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. It is perhaps the most fucked up thing in that whole game, which I suppose speaks well of some of the aspects of that game, but also, Jesus Christ, man, what are we doing? Come up with something mysterious. Samus. What is Aaron? What? Fuck me. I hate it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I can't talk about it anymore because it will imprint on my memory if I keep saying it here. It will imprint on my memory, and then I don't know what's going to happen. So let's just forget. Let's all forget. Let's all forget. Let's take an ad break to help, and then we'll come back. We'll get into the news. We'll talk about my PlayStation 5 year in review, and the news. Selling stuff online used to be really, really hard. There were a lot of considerations you had to take in as you're building this website. Okay, first you got to build a website. You got to build a cart. You have to build the ability to safely take in credit card information and securely maintain all of that. It was a little scary at times. Shopify is here to take all of that away and make selling things online easy, smooth, and customizable. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands that are just getting started. You can get started with your own design studio. They have hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style. And you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. They'll easily help you create email and social media campaigns so you can reach your customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. That's right. Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. If you're ready to sell, you are ready for Shopify. Turn your big business into... with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Jeff. Go to shopify.com/Jeff. Again, that's shopify.com/Jeff. I also played a little Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which is a scroll. It's a belt scroller in the Marvel universe. I don't have I need to spend some more time with it. It really looks nice, and I went through the tutorial and kind of got into it a little bit after that, and just did not click with the combat in that game especially well. But that is out now, and so just as a heads up, that is out now. I will probably spend more time with that in the near future. Last week I tried to get a television. Last week, I guess it was last week. God. Part of the Black Friday sales, and also the moving process here for the studio and everything else. I was like, well, I need to get a television. Let's get a television. And so I ordered a television. It came while I was on stream, and so just to follow up on that story, it's really the dumbest. It's really the dumbest. So I couldn't even remember which model of TV I bought. I sat down and said, well, I'm going to buy one of these things. And the LG makes two different styles of television, two different models of OLED TVs. They make way more than that, but really it's, when we're talking about TVs for gaming and whatever else, there's the C series and the G series. The G series, being gangster, has better features, such as the screen looks better in brighter rooms. And I was like, well, there's going to be bright lights in this room because it's kind of a studio setting, and so maybe I should. And it has really bright overheads in the garage, and so I was, so I eventually talked myself into getting the slightly more expensive G5 over the C5. And so I ordered a G5, and so they came to deliver it last Wednesday, and it's dudes in a truck, and part of the service is that they set it up. Because this is a service I'm fine with as someone who has broken a flat panel TV trying to move it around and having it fall too far. I had a TV out of Sharp Aquos that fell too far forward onto my Wii U, and that was enough to destroy the screen, and so I had to replace the whole fucking TV. Anyway, as someone who has fucking broken a television, I was like, yes, I will let these people break the television because then they will have to replace it. And Jesus Christ, I've become a little shell shocked around just moving flat screen televisions ever since that day. And so they came out, they unboxed it, and there's no stand in the box. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? And the instructions that come with the TV talk about a stand and assembling a stand and all of this stuff. And so the three of us, me and the two guys that came to set up the TV, are just like bewildered. We're like, what the fuck's going on? And we're like, well, it's got to be missing from the box. Like, I guess this stuff is missing from the box. That's weird. And so, it was like, well, if there's missing stuff in the box, then I'm not going to take it. And they're like, yeah, no, of course. Like, no, definitely not. Like, why would you? Yes, absolutely. And so they boxed it back up and took it away with them. Turns out the G series televisions don't come with a stand because they assume you're going to mount it on a wall. And so it only comes with wall mounting brackets, which is, I think, fucking insane. But that was something after some research later that day. I was like, well, shit. Well, now what? So they took the TV away, and I was able, this was an Amazon thing. And so I was able to go to their website and say, bring it tomorrow. And so I ordered a stand, and so the stand showed up, and I assembled the stand, and I had rescheduled the delivery for the next day. No one shows up. Like that, you can track the package. Like it wasn't even on a truck or anything like that. So I had to figure out how to talk to a human being at Amazon.com. If you can fucking imagine. So I jumped through the hoops to finally find a way to do that. Which is there is no phone number that you call them at. I found a spot on the website where you click a button and then your phone rings. And then you're on hold. It's not even like you are immediately talking to a person. It's like you click a button, your phone rings, and then they put you on hold. And you're like, oh, what the fuck is that? Okay, sure. I get on the phone with a person. I start explaining this fucking cockamamie situation. And he's like, well, it says here it's supposed to be delivered by 8 p.m. and it's not 8 p.m. yet. I'm like, listen. He goes, okay, well, this is a bulky delivery item, so you need to talk to someone in bulky delivery. I said, yes, I would love to talk to someone in bulky delivery. And so I get on the phone with someone in bulky delivery, and she's very nice. Everyone is very nice, like whatever. But she's like, yeah, there's been a lot of shipping delays lately, and so a lot of packages are late. And I'm like, look, no, this package was in my garage yesterday. Like, this package is in town, or maybe it's on its way out of town and you need to send another one. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what we're going to do about this fucking television, one way or the other. And she's like, well, let's reschedule the delivery. I'm like, okay, let's. When can you deliver it? Monday. So that was yesterday. Okay, it'll be there between 11 and 8. And I said, so a TV will be showing up here between 11 and 8. She said, yes. Okay. No. No, it did not. And like, it makes sense. Like, I'm sure that, like, the message gets conveyed to the delivery company, and they're like, we don't have a TV. We have this open box that we shipped back, but like, we don't have a, so it's something got lost. Some logistical information was lost somewhere in the middle, and whatever else, right? And so I'm not like especially shocked by this information, but I like yesterday I'm kind of like looking and going like, does it show as out for delivery the way it did the first time? It does not. There's absolutely no way this TV is going to arrive today. And then the time finally expired, and then it just auto processed a refund. And I'm supposed to get that within 3 to 5 days, and so now I don't have a TV coming. And now the TV is $100 more expensive than it was, which is cool. which removes the reasoning for ordering it from Amazon in the first place. So, I might just go get one. But again, I would much rather have someone. I would really like to have someone show up and put it on the stand that I bought because I don't want to break this television. I just don't want to break. I don't want to buy a television and fucking break it. And so Costco has the TV, but they don't have any kind of installation services whatsoever. Best Buy, I think, does. And so I might try to reorder the television from Best Buy. They might have it in stock, so I could theoretically just go down and buy one, but then I'm left to my own devices when it comes to getting it out and doing all of that stuff. And like, again, it would probably be fine. I have handled a lot of fragile material over the years and what have you, but there's something about televisions when we get to 55 inches and greater, that I don't want to fucking break a television again. I just don't want to it's an awkward flat screen thing. It's very easy for it to bend and fall over and this and that. And it's just like, fuck that. Like I would happily pay a little extra, which it was not extra. It was actually like the installation stuff was free when I bought the stupid television. And so I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm going to buy another television and we'll see how it goes because I need to have a TV out there for when all this stuff moves out there as well. And but now that it's not on, I'm not on any kind of sale or discount or whatever, like there's zero time pressure involved. And so now I just have a TV stand sitting out there with nothing on it as a reminder of my fucking futile endeavor. Let's get into the news. PlayStation has delivered its year-end wrap-up of the games you played on PlayStation. I forgot that everyone did this at the start of December now with all of their, here's your Wrapped and here's your this. And like I got a Discord thing that was like, you used the Ryback emoji on Discord a lot. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I did. Also, there's still a month left in the year. What are you trying to say? Does no one talk on Discord in December? Oh no, you just want to be part of the social sharing, blah 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 blah. And so you put it out December 1st and you end it in November or whatever for marketing reasons. Anyway, PlayStation put out their equivalent showing you what you played on their platform. My numbers for this are usually like very small. Again, as someone who is playing games across multiple platforms, all of these like roll-ups, like here's what you spent the most time on. Like I had like the Nintendo one year was like, you spent 2 hours playing this. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I didn't review any first-party games this year. And so I didn't touch my Switch for, pretty much an entire calendar year. So sometimes for me, these things are kind of ridiculous. My PlayStation one, however, is perhaps the biggest it's been in ages. But that's because of, and this is also an interesting indicator to see here, and it's living proof that the PlayStation 5 is for the kids now, apparently. Here's my top 5. Number 1, We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie PS4 and PS5. That is the number 1 game. It has been played for 234 hours. 41% of my overall playtime. Coming in at number 2, it's Once Upon a Katamari at 158 hours. A lot of that is time paused while dinner is being served, and other, there's a lot of pause time in the middle of all that, I would say. Once Upon a Katamari may overtake We Love Katamari, but I don't know. At number 3, with a bullet, because it is burning up the charts right now. It is. I bet if they ran this on December 31st, this will have overtaken Once Upon a Katamari. At number 3 is Goat Simulator 3 at 30 hours, 13 trophies, 5% of playtime. Coming in at number 4, it's Infinity Nikki at 21 hours. 2 trophies, 3% of my playtime. And rounding out the top 5, of course, it's Sonic Superstars at 16 hours, 13 trophies, and 2% of playtime. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I've played none of those games, because I have in fact played all of those games, because when the kids get stuck, they hand it to me. Like, my son wants me to play Goat Simulator because he can't understand the quests, and because the quests are relatively they're not well guided, like signposted, and like it is not something. It is something. The quests in Goat Simulator 3 are very easy to intuit if you play games. If you've played a lot of games, you go like, oh yeah, I need to do this and this. Here's this little tricky. Here's this one weird trick to complete this quest, and blah blah blah. But if you don't have that mentality of like, what is this game asking me to do? Every single quest in that game is absolute nonsense. And so he can't. He can run around and he can jump, and he's got the hang glider, and he can put on a fucking a rocket cannon that attaches fireworks to people and makes them fly away, and all this other cool shit. And he's having a blast. He's loving it. Someone who worked on the game listens to the show. I'll leave name out of it just in case, but sent along some keys for the add-on content for that, which we have not gotten into yet because he's still stuck. He's still enjoying the main game, so I have not rolled. Also, he's been a bad boy, and so some video game time has been restricted from him, and so we have not gotten into the add-ons for Goat Simulator 3, but I'm looking forward to it. And so it is a lot of me completing tasks in Goat Simulator. Lately, it's been since when you complete one of the quests in Goat Simulator, UFOs fly over the city, and if you climb up the big building in the middle of the game, you can get close enough to the UFO to get sucked up into it, and you get to control a tiny little UFO and basically fly around and shoot things and have a tractor beam. It's like a really fun unlock. Goat Simulator is a game full of fun unlocks and like not amazing writing. Like very like underwhelming dialogue and writing and what have you. But like the things you uncover, the sandboxy type stuff that you run into in this game is maybe second to none. A Saints Row level of insane bullshit that you find and exploit to your own ends. And it's fun when you're doing all that. The UFO is great. But to get back in the UFO, it's very easy to get out of the UFO, but to get back into the UFO, you have to climb all the way back up to the top of that building. And my son is not going to climb up to the top of that building. So instead he says, he calls it a USO. And we correct my daughter and I correct him and say, no, it's a UFO, but he keeps calling it a USO. I expect like Bob Hope to be there or something. And so like it's me climbing the building over and over again. And I have found a very optimized route to get to the top of that building because he gets in that UFO and then immediately hits triangle and falls out of the UFO and goes, "Can you get me to the top of the building?" And I'm like, yeah, I can climb all the way back up there. Don't worry about it. I'm on it. But that's my top 5 PlayStation games. My son also just got into Kirby Air Ride while my daughter was at school. My daughter asked me for her own account. She wanted to have her own saves and everything, and so on the Switch, I created a profile for her now, and she's got her own profile. It was a weirdly. It was a moment. It was like, oh wow, she's growing up so fast. She has her own profile on this thing and doesn't want to share her saves with people. Like, wow, what the hell? These kids, they really grow up fast. It's nuts. Let's get into the rest of the news. Netflix is trying to buy Warner Brothers, and they have won the initial kind of bidding True Blue Venue asks, what are their opinions on Rick? They're both big Rick fans, but my son really loves Kirby. He likes Rick. My daughter loves Rick. My son is Rick positive, but loves Kirby. Netflix is trying to buy Warner Brothers. This is after a period of multiple companies submitting bids, and Netflix won that phase of the process, and so now they are negotiating with Warner Brothers to acquire the company. This is something that came along with press releases and all this other stuff. Like, hey, we expect this deal to close in 18 months, and they did. Like, this is where they're heading. There's some fucking intrigue happening in the wings on this that or make it a little bit more complicated than that sounds. Because Paramount, who lost that phase of the bidding, has also submitted their own kind of hostile bid that they're like, we're going to take this directly to the shareholders, which is always, I don't know, like all of this stuff is fucking bullshit across the board, but there is something about we're going to go right to the shareholders and blah, 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 blah. And we're going to, like, there was some story going around saying that some shareholder in Square Enix wrote like 100-page doc about how Square could be doing better. And with game companies, it's always especially embarrassing when you see these kind of like activist investors or investors that think that they can do it better than the company than the people that are running the company, especially in games, because it's always people going like, you should do this. And it's always the stupidest shit in the fucking world that you're like, well, there's a reason why a video game company doesn't do that. And it's because this is the most insane bullshit in the world. Like the thing you're saying, like, oh, this might be a short-term bump to the stock price that will also end the company completely. So yeah, good job. Shut the fuck up. Not that Square Enix is being run like amazingly well or whatever, but also anyway, as far as the Warner Brothers stuff, I don't think either of these options ends up being good for the video game arm of I don't think either of these ends up being great for the movie business in general. And I'm someone who has like very little nostalgia or very little I don't care about movie theaters. And I don't especially like Netflix. In fact, I would go so far as to say I don't think Netflix is a good service. I think it's been quite a bad service for trying to watch movies, because things were always coming and going. And there was something about Netflix that was nice and pure for a good long time, because you're like, yeah, I want to see some movies. These are the movies I want to see. Do you have them? Great. I want to watch them. And then Netflix, like a lot of these other, streaming companies that started up around after this, Netflix decided that they were just going to get into making their own content. And I don't give a shit about that stuff. I signed up for Netflix because I wanted to get DVDs in the mail for movies I wanted to see. I signed up for Netflix so that I could watch Tokyo Drift in a hotel room. And when you didn't have Tokyo Drift anymore and I really needed it in a hotel room and it wasn't there, I said, fuck this and fuck you and fuck Netflix. And like all this, like the way that all of this stuff has been, now all these companies are making original content and expecting you to sign up. Like, am I supposed to sign up for Apple TV for 1 month to watch whatever new show is happening there and then remember to cancel it? If only there was some kind of service that could help me cancel my subscriptions. But I don't know. What am I supposed to do? Sign up for all of these things all at once and pay some exorbitant monthly fees to 9 different streaming services so I can watch all this bullshit? Or should I just go, oh, I don't actually care about any of this and not watch any of it? Because fuck this. Are you kidding me? Like, this is stupid. So Netflix is a concept. I think for me, that ship has sailed, because I'm just not, it's not what I was looking for out of Netflix. I wanted them to be the place I could go to watch the movies I wanted to see. And it was nice when it was like, oh, you've got this is better than like back when you subscribed to HBO and like, oh, this month they have these movies and they're going to show Tokyo Drift fucking 9 times a day for this month. And then only like 2 times a day the month after that, or, or whatever. But like, you could still find it. Like it's like that, but I don't know, man. All this original content is not stuff it's not stuff I'm looking for from a streaming provider. And increasingly, the streaming providers have been the content providers as well. And so it makes sense that Netflix would do this, because otherwise they would be left behind. And I know that a lot of these original series, especially like some of the Apple TV stuff, has been very well regarded. But it's all of this stuff has helped sour me on television really a lot, just over time. The prestige TV, the releasing all the entire season all in one go, everything that's done to discourse and conversation around television, and just the everything about that stuff I've just found no pleasure in any of that stuff. And so it's all kind of assisted me in the process of just, I don't want to deal with any of this shit. I don't want to watch any of this stuff, really. And so if I am going to watch anything, like, yeah, you sign up for a month, you watch a thing, and then cancel it immediately. Or you find a way to like rent it from digitally, or, it's just like at some point, it's just like, it is in a lot of ways the other side of the Game Pass conversation, where you're like, oh, Game Pass is, even when there's, there's so much on it that you're like, oh, actually this is shifted in such a way that I'm not consuming most of that content. And so it would be dumb for me to sign up for a subscription service for a lot of this stuff when I could, just acquire what I'm looking for, from rental sites or purchase I'll buy a damn Blu-ray if I have to. Rip that thing. Don't give a fuck. You want to watch Johnny Dangerously? Come to my place. Come to my land. It's right here. So anyway, all that aside, I don't think that Netflix buying the Warner Brothers catalog and the properties that Warner Brothers controls from a movie standpoint is especially good. And I think it's probably even worse for video games. There's been not a lot of talk about the video game segment of Warner Brothers in any of this merger talk, because it's not something that it's not a primary thing that they want, obviously. Like Netflix wants the Warner Brothers whole catalog. They want all of the other stuff. Like, they're not there going like, well, I don't know, man. We could, maybe the next Mortal Kombat will be on phones only. Like, none of the scenarios seem like they are going to lead to good things for Warner Brothers video game properties. At best, nothing happens. But it's very hard to imagine a scenario. There was finally a quote. Steven Totillo finally saw a quote from someone at Netflix. There was like a real lip service, like, of course, the Hogwarts Legacy, is that the name of the game? The Hogwarts College video game has been a wonderful game, and there's talented teams working on video games. But it's clear that it's not something that is massively key to the acquisition. Netflix is not like going, yeah, finally we get to control these great video game franchises. They're not there going like, we can bring back Paperboy. They're not there going like, oh man, we can, like, Dr. Mudo is finally going to have his day because all of these great Midway properties get to, come back to life. They're not there going like, we're going to finally make the next great Gauntlet game. It's hard to imagine a scenario where they even have a stomach for making Mortal Kombat on a long-term basis at the rate that it is made, and and that's probably a pretty profitable franchise as games go. But are they going to care enough about it to let it continue unabated? Or are they going to go, oh, well, this is cool with Mortal Kombat, but like, I don't know, we put Red Dead on phones. We could do that? Like, I don't know, man. Like, none of this seems like a great environment for NetherRealm to thrive. Paramount, of course, launched its hostile takeover, and that gets messy because Paramount is like Jared Kushner is involved in this, and you know the president fucking voiced some favor for wanting Paramount to do this, which of course, you know, all deals in this country are now up to the whims of an insane old man who fucking has dumb and bad ideas about the fucking media. And so, you know, that's going to be some thumb on the scale when it comes to antitrust investigations and everything. I would not be shocked if the Netflix deal fell apart in favor of a Paramount deal because they were like, oh, this looks like a monopoly. But the Paramount one seems great, though. And with David Ellison, that guy, these Ellisons, good guys, lots of money to donate. They're really great. They're really nice people. You know, like I would not be shocked to see this whole thing fall apart in that way. It's still, you know, nothing is a done deal yet. And so obviously there's a lot of fucking horse shit between here and there. And so, but that, all that said, like, I don't think that Paramount ends up looking like a great home for any of this material either. Both on the movie end and the video game end. As someone who briefly worked for the company that became Paramount, I know it is a slightly different organization these days, but give me a fucking break. Are you fucking high? No fucking way. Yeah, it's hard to feel good about the video game, the future of, you know, Rocksteady and NetherRealm in this situation. And, you know, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but, again, they just don't seem like that they are on the radar in this transaction, right? Like, no one's looking at Warner Brothers and going like, and we get this like legendary video game franchise, and we get this studio that is, you know, maybe is made a stinker here, but like they made these Batman games that were incredible. And like, no one is looking at that stuff and going like, this is a great way for us to get into making full priced, great video games. And we can expand from here. You know, like everyone is just looking at it as like, we can make Batman movies. You know, Superman would be ours. We could do this. We could do that. You know, like people are only looking at it from the like movies and TVs and studios end of things, and the video game stuff really just comes across like an afterthought here, and that never feels good. The idea that video games are just going to be an afterthought in like any kind of merger, and so you start to wonder. Does this lead to a situation where they spin off the video game stuff? If not before the sale, then after, you know, is it a situation where they go like, you know, it's weird because Netflix wants to have some kind of arm devoted to video games. They have fumbled their way through this. There's been turnover there at the management level. And so right now I think it is like you can play Red Dead Redemption 2 on a phone if you're a Netflix subscriber, which I don't understand the appeal of that whatsoever, but sure, I guess. You could envision some scenario where Netflix goes, hey, we've got a big streaming infrastructure. We can stream video to people really well. Why aren't we doing a streaming video game service like those Google guys did? And then someone whispers to them like, the Google thing didn't go well. And they're like, I mean, who, like Amazon did. The Amazon thing also sucks shit. Like, well, you know, we could do a streaming service. And I don't know what the, you know, what ends up being the situation there. Polygonal Bilal says Condemned Criminal Origins TV series. Yeah. Condemned, I don't believe is a IP that is currently part of that package. I think Condemned, the ownership of it ended up reverting, or you know, I think that ended up going in a different direction. So don't get your hopes up for the future of Condemned. Or actually, no, don't get your hopes up for the future of Condemned either way. I've been hurt before. So yeah, I this whole thing just seems. I'm trying not to be like mega doom and gloom about it, but it is hard when you look at the ideas of either Netflix or Paramount ending up being the company responsible for making the next Mortal Kombat games happen. It's hard to have a lot of faith in that. It's hard to have a lot of faith in that at all. And so I do wonder what ends up happening there. And of course, like the rest of like Warner Brothers has been like the Warner Brothers games efforts have been, in need of a, like a near complete rework. And that was something that they were trying to do. They've, kind of changed the way that a lot of those studios report in. And so there's been like leadership changes on the Warner side. And now who knows what will happen on the other end of that. Maybe they just go, hey, cool, just don't lose money. Get out there and just don't lose money. And so the big franchises that end up being profitable end up staying there and staying basically unchanged. But again, it's hard to envision a scenario where there's like a lot of brand new investment there in like new ththings or revitalizing some of the older things they have. I think the best case scenario you end up seeing the best case scenario I could envision for a lot of the older properties, the older game properties they have, is that's the sort of stuff that they could end up selling off. Much like Atari just bought some of that IP from Ubisoft. Is there a scenario where they go like, okay, like a lot of these old arcade franchises, we're never going to do anything with them. There's someone here who will give us something for them. Like the value of them is suspect anyway. So we're going to sell most of them off. And then they do boneheaded things like, we decided to keep Spy Hunter because there was that movie, or then we thought there was going to be the movie and the thing with the rock. And so there's potential in Spy Hunter. So we're keeping that, but you can have Paperboy and Gauntlet, and you can have, Defender and Robotron and, like whatever else. So I don't know. Or, you end up in a worst case scenario where you get like Netflix showing up on the doorstep of these studios after they bought them and saying like, why don't you make games this way? We got some fresh ideas about how video games work and we think we're right, and end up destroying the whole fucking thing. And I think that will make sense for legacy properties and stuff that is not being used. But like I don't think there's any scenario where they sell Mortal Kombat to someone else. I could see a scenario where they sold NetherRealm to someone else, but it's hard to envision them wanting to part ways with the property, which I think effectively kills it one way or the other. But you wonder like, maybe there's a scenario where they go like, okay, we're going to sublet this and you can keep making Mortal Kombat games over here, but we control it for movie purposes or whatever. But I don't know, whatever. There's a billion different ways that deal could be done, but I don't think any of those deals sound great. Dan Forden just retired from NetherRealm not that long ago. And we've talked about it with some of the longtime Nintendo executives and so on. But you do start to ask the question of just like, how many more years do the NetherRealm leadership have left in them? And if those years are suddenly hostile because they have to sit in a bunch of meetings and fight against morons who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, that's the sort of stuff where you just go like, fuck this, I'm retiring. I don't need this shit. I don't know. A lot of different ways that could go. It's just hard to envision any of them being especially good. Speaking of fighting game, like faces stepping away, Katsuhiro Harada has announced that at the end of this year, he will be leaving Bandai Namco. He posted a big long message. I'm still not used to seeing big long messages on Twitter. It still seems like a terrible place to post things that are not 140 characters, but yeah, he says, with the Tekken series reaching its 30th anniversary, an important milestone for a project I've devoted much of my life to, I felt this was the most fitting moment to bring one chapter to a close. I'll paraphrase here. He's you know, in recent years, I experienced the loss of several close friends in my personal life and my professional life. I witnessed the retirement or passing of many senior colleagues whom I deeply respect. Those accumulated events made me reflect on the time I have left as a creator. During that period, I sought advice from Ken Kutaragi, whom I respect as though he were another father, and received invaluable encouragement and guidance. His words quietly supported me in making this decision. Over the last 4 to 5 years, I've gradually handed over all of my responsibilities, as well as the stories and world building I oversaw, to the team, bringing me to the present day. Looking back, I was fortunate to work on an extraordinary variety of projects, VR titles such as Summer Lesson, Hawken Tournament, the Soul Calibur series, and many others, both inside and outside the company. Each project was full of new discoveries and learning, and every one of them became an irreplaceable experience for me. And then he dropped a mixtape. He dropped a Tekken mixtape on SoundCloud. Tekken, a 30-year journey, Harada's final mix. A 60-minute Tekken DJ-style nonstop mix personally edited by myself, together with the announcement. So now really, it was true before, but it has never been more true. Do not ask him for shit. Tekken, you know? Tekken kind of fell on slightly hard times recently, but you know, like their second season started, and the patch that kind of came along with that soured a lot of players on Tekken 8 in ways that seemed very dramatic, and the team, you know, kind of has been struggling to kind of get that back. I look at this as not the Harada is as close to a public face for Namco as we've had, especially since the merger with Bandai. Since the merger with Bandai, and originally it being Namco Bandai and then Bandai Namco, you know, that company's output has changed dramatically. It's the Pac-Man company, you know, it's the people what own Dig Dug. It's the Xevious people, you know, and it's bittersweet in a way that in this year when we get Shadow Labyrinth, a game that like tries to cash in a little bit. Cash in is a weird word. It's not selling copies because of this, but a game that tries to leverage the weird decades-long story timeline of all of these different Namco franchises, going all the way back to Xevious and the story of Xevious and the way that tied into all of these different games and Ace Combat and what, like everything they've done with the Strange Reel and just like all of the things that Namco did. There were some real Namco ass things. You know, Namco has not been doing very many Namco ass things lately. And in a lot of ways, Tekken was the last kind of flagship for Namco. Ridge Racer is basically gone. Ace Combat, like, you know, like when are you going to see another Ace Combat game? Maybe, you know, like it's the potential is always there, but like a lot of this stuff is gone. You know, a lot of the legacy of Namco, which is a rich and amazing legacy. You know, again, they're it's the company that made motherfucking Pac-Man. They got some stories. Some of those stories, like the little bits of those stories that intersect with Atari are actually contained in that DLC that came out for Atari 50 that focuses on the Atari and Namco partnership. Yeah, I don't know. This one, this kind of hit me hard because I look at it and go like, yeah, man, yeah, that's a great run. And I also bet that working there sucks. And being in a position that Harada is, like, you've become too important at work and now it's fucking uncool, man. And you know, I can relate to that in a way, I suppose. But I bet being the guy that was there when the company was a very different thing and seeing it just go like, I don't know, like, yeah, that's cool. Well, yeah, you go keep making Tekken and people love it, and they go off and they play their tournaments. We're gonna fart out a bunch of anime garbage over here. And that's cool too, right? And you just like, I guess, I don't know. I'm over here working on Tekken, trying to keep the flame lit, I guess. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a bummer. But like, more power to him. You know, like, I think sometimes you just got to get the fuck out. And you know, again, I don't know anything. I don't know anything too inside about what it's like at Namco, but he's spoken about, like, you know, oh, it's tricky, it's hard to make these things, you know, like people always ask about Ridge Racer, and it's, you know, it's not a great number of people, but it's a passionate number of people that I think should be served. There should be a new Ridge Racer, but building a business case for a new Ridge Racer, I imagine, is very fucking hard these days, and building a team that could get it done is probably not super easy either. And so at some point, yeah, you know, at some point you see like, this seems like a really great time to get out of here. But Tekken, man, you know, he's been the face of Tekken for a good long time, and I wonder what happens to Tekken after this. I was already kind of thinking that, because like there was just something weird about the feelings around Tekken 8, which, you know, yeah, there's been problems with Tekken 8. There's been some bad patches and balance issues, and just there's been like shit accumulating on Tekken 8 that has not been wiped off as quickly as you want it to be, you know. And as that kind of started happening, it just feels like the conversation around Tekken, the community sentiment around Tekken, is just turned in a way that you just look at and go like, is this going to be it for Tekken, man? Is it going to be brought down all at once by something like this? Really? Now, I don't think that's the case. I bet there will be a Tekken 9 at some point here. But it's hard to it's just hard to envision a lengthy future for the franchise anymore. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's I guess I would say I am worried. This announcement leaves me worried about the future of Tekken, and I hope that Harada goes on to do great things. I hope that he found something new. I would love to see him stay in games. I hope that he says, I'll share more about my next steps at a later date. So, you know, he kind of says more to come. And I wonder if that will be in making games, or if he will retire and just start a podcast and release more 60-minute mixes. Who knows? Maybe he just loves, I mean, you know, Summer Lesson is one of the few games mentioned specifically in his announcement. So maybe he's just running off to make more VR games. He was bitten by the VR bug. He's got to go. Other moves, according to videogameschronicle.com, I guess this is citing Bloomberg. A couple of the heads of the Initiative, the studio that was working on Perfect Dark, have started at 2K, and they're going to be building a new studio inside of 2K. You remember that when Perfect Dark was getting canceled, there was a brief period of time there where word got out that 2K was trying to acquire Perfect Dark from Microsoft and keep it going, and find a way to keep that project moving. They couldn't agree over the long-term rights of Perfect Dark, who would own the IP or whatever, so the deal fell apart and Perfect Dark was canned. But it seems like that 2K liked the people, at least the people at the top, and so they have gone out and picked those guys up. It is the ex-director and former studio head, Daryl Gallagher, who was the studio head, and Brian Horton, who was the director of Perfect Dark. They are now both at Take-Two, and looks like they are going to be starting a new studio. We'll see what comes out of that. Take-Two has been, and it's the GTA money gives you a certain amount of, hey man, fuck this, fuck you, as long as the GTA money is coming in. But Take-Two has at least done a pretty good job of staying out of a lot of the bullshit and merger talk and just like a lot of the garbage that has been kind of floating around the video game business lately. Take-Two has been able to stay out of that fray to a certain extent. And that's been interesting. So I wonder if that's a good place to work or not. I don't know. But at least from the outside looking in, it seems like that they are able to, stay out of some of the bullshit and not chase a bunch of bad trends and whatever else. And so that's been interesting to see. Even as GTA gets pushed back yet again, it feels like they've stuck mostly to their kind of core competencies when it comes to the projects they pick and all of that stuff. That's been interesting to see. Pat says they fully support Rockstar's firing of union folks. Yeah, well, I mean, of course they do. Like they own Rockstar. That's not going to happen without them, naturally. Three Fields Entertainment, makers of Recreation, has been continuing to work on Recreation, and I don't know how much longer that's going to be the case. They have announced that they have put the studio on notice of redundancy, which is that UK thing where before you shut down a studio or fire all of your people or lay a bunch of people off, you have to give some form of announcement, which still seems like crazy to me here in the States where people just get fired all the time. Let's see here. This comes from Fiona Sperry, who's the CEO of Three Fields. She, of course, has a long legacy with Criterion and everything, as much of the original team at Three Fields does. After 12 years of building and nurturing Three Fields Entertainment, I'm forced into the situation today, placing our entire team on notice of redundancy. Since the launch of Recreation, our small studio has worked incredibly hard with heart and dedication to update the game, listen to our community, and deliver the fixes and features players asked for. I could not be prouder of the people I've worked alongside or the passion they've poured into this project. But the reality we now face is stark. As an independent studio, we will not see revenue from game sales for the foreseeable future. We've had to self-fund most of this year and all of the post-launch content. Without the enthusiasm or financial support from our publisher to continue development, we simply cannot sustain the studio in its current form. Making this decision has been unbelievably painful. It kind of goes on. My hope is that by showing this work publicly, someone out there might also see that potential and perhaps an opportunity could still emerge. But even if that hope does not materialize, we want this to stand as a testament to our vision and to the strength, passion, and skill of our tiny team. I truly believe in the potential of this game and in the brilliance of the people who built it. Yeah, the lack of enthusiasm and support from the publisher to continue development, I guess I can't say that that's a massive surprise. The game was published by THQ Nordic. I had to when Game of the Year time comes around, when the Game Awards and the voting and all of that stuff comes around, you start getting emails from companies saying, I talked about this last week or the week before, just about the process. Like some companies will say like, oh, for your consideration, we think it would be, we think that this game would be good in this category and you should consider that. And then you read the email and go, all right. Or they ask you like, hey, do you need any keys for games? Because you're in the middle of judging and nominating games or whatever. So it's a good time to say like, oh, I didn't get a key for this back when it was released. I do want to play this and see if it should be nominated here or whatever. And so that's Game of the Year season has worked that way even before the Game Awards, like that kind of year end, like, hey, we're doing this wrap up thing. Do you need anything to assist in that coverage or whatever? The email I got from THQ Nordic was like, hey, we put out these two games and we think you should consider them. and it was like Wreckfest 2 and another game whose name escapes me at this time, but it was notably 2 games. And I responded to the email and said, "Hey, isn't Recreation supposed to be shipping this year? Is that still on? Do you have that? I would be interested in taking a look at that. Like I have the other 2 games already, but like isn't that coming up? Wouldn't you want to maybe say, hey, this is," and maybe it's because they had 2 driving games and they decided to get behind one and not the other. And Wreckfest is a more proven sequel to a thing or whatever. I don't know the reasons behind it, but like I kind of had to put in a little more effort than one should in that situation to get an email back saying like, "Oh yeah, Recreation's still coming out. Do you want it?" Yes, I would love to check it out. I mean, if there are few people on the planet that would be better suited and more interested in seeing a game from the Burnout Paradise people. Yeah, sure, I would love to check it out. So like that was just fucking weird. And whatever, and that happens sometimes. It's not. That's not like a smoking gun sort of thing. Like sometimes just stuff happens, but like it never seemed like a game that was at the front of anyone's mind on the publisher end, as far as I'm concerned. And the game released and needed some work. I think it's a game that probably still needs some work for sure, but it has like really good bones. They've added crossplay to it, which is just a fucking tragedy. Crossplay went in last week for console and PC, and it seems like it works, but also I can't find any games running, And so, like, in light of this news, which is ultimately not super shocking, I was not surprised to see that this is where it's at with Recreation. The patches and things they've done post release have been like good. They've fixed some of the technical issues. They added crossplay. They've done some of the key stuff they needed to do. They added some content along the way. They kind of have stuck to the roadmap that they put up like the week or so after release and said, here's the bugs we're fixing, here's the new stuff we're adding, and they've been working to those ends. And the game just kind of failed to find an audience. You could and the technical issues that it had at launch were substantial, right? It's not purely a case of like, and nothing ever is anymore. It can't purely be a case of like, oh, they didn't market it, so no one showed up. It doesn't help. And they've included it in like THQ Nordic had like a video that they did a few months ago, kind of in the wake of Summer Games Fest or, kind of early fall or something, I think it was. But they included it in there. And so there was kind of a little bit of a announcement of it, but like by and large, it felt like the game was mostly dark, and the only information that was coming out of it was stuff that was coming from the developer. Like I was going to the developer's website and going like, is there any update here? And like, okay, there is kind of a thing. And, and they worked on it through COVID, and they worked on it, through a lot of real weird times and whatever. So, I think there's probably a lot of fingers you could point as to why this one didn't land. And some of that is because the game was not, the variety of content was not what it needed to be. There's there's plenty of reasons I think within the game itself that you look at and go like it needed more, but the rest of all the external stuff certainly did not help. And it makes you wonder, like everyone says they want a new Burnout game, until you give them one that's most of the way there. And the caveat is like, hey, by the way, it ain't going to get any better than this anytime soon, because it's not like EA is lining up to make another fucking Burnout game. So if you want anything that's even in the same ballpark as a Burnout game, get on board, because this is fucking it, son. I think people maybe didn't understand that. It's funny, this sucks. It sucks when studios close. I think that the legacy of Three Fields has been really interesting because as someone who, you know, has covered the games that they put out leading up to Recreation, it was relatively clear. And you know, they said as much, you know, interviewing Alex Ward back in the day, you know, when Dangerous Driving and some of this other stuff was coming out, like, this always seemed like their plan was, okay, we're going to try to make some Crash Mode stuff, some smaller games that we can get some revenue coming in so that we can afford to build the next thing, the next bigger thing, the next thing. And so they kept kind of moving in that direction, eventually hoping to get back to making a game that is similar to Burnout Paradise, which at the time was called Dangerous Driving 2 and is now Recreation. And they did it. It's not as clean as you want it to be. Like, you know, the Recreation is not the full on. It is not superior to Burnout Paradise in some ways. It is, you know, it's a game with some issues, but like they eventually did the thing that they set out to do. And so if nothing else, I think they should be proud of like having like something resembling a multi-year plan and at least getting to a point where they're like, we did the thing. Maybe people didn't want it anymore by the time they got there. But also, again, it's a game that has very real issues. You know, it's tempting to romanticize this stuff in a way where you go like, oh, the people just weren't smart enough to, you know, and you know, whatever. It's not like the game itself has issues that would turn people off. You know, there are reasons why you would see this game and not enjoy it. I understand that. But like Recreation is a neat fucking game. And again, as someone who is fairly confident that EA is never going to make another Burnout game ever again, it's not going to get any closer than this anytime soon. And that's frustrating. It's frustrating on all ends because you're like, man, like all these games get closer and closer to the ideal. And, you know, they made a closed track style, you know, Dangerous Driving was, you know, they did that stuff and kind of the traditional Burnout style game and made some interesting choices there. And it's interesting that the way they've found ways to make games as a smaller team and figured out which corners they could cut. Like it's interesting. Like if you look at their output over the years and the things they were trying to accomplish, like it's fascinating to me. But, yeah, I think Recreation probably deserved better in a lot of different ways, but the game that's there is fun. You just kind of have to know what you're going in for. You know, it doesn't like if you think about other modern open world racing games and, you know, like a Forza Horizon or whatever, or more recent Need for Speed games, like this game doesn't look like those. It doesn't play like they're attempting something different. They're trying to make a Burnout game, and they missed the mark in some ways. You know, some meaningful ones. You know, event variety and things where they could have improved upon the original, and you know, there's a lot of stuff there. But all that said, it's frustrating to see this. It's frustrating to see this for sure. According to GamesIndustry.biz, Three Fields was founded in 2014. So that's an 11-year run. They got out of EA and started that studio. And yeah. So I heart goes out to them. I wish them the best. A different style of video game mess here. Postal, everyone's favorite video game franchise. Not at all one funny game and then a bunch of incredibly unfunny follow-ups after that. Postal 1, hell of a game. Postal 1, kind of a lot of fun. Scandalous even. Postal 2, and everything after it, embarrassing. Anyway, a new Postal game got announced and had a real grand opening, grand closing sort of moment. Postal Bullet Paradise. They put out a trailer showing it was going to be developed by a company called Goon Swarm Games, which has been around for a bit. They've got some other stuff that they've shipped. This was an interesting little saga here that videogameschronicle.com, your home for sagas, has recapped quite well. So the trailer came out and it looked like AI. And so people in the Running with Scissors community, which is the name of the developer that still exists, the original company responsible for Postal, people in that community said, hey, this looks like a bunch of fucking slop and a bunch of garbage. This led to, God, what a real dumb. This led to, on the Discord that they run, one of the co-owners of Running with Scissors, Mike Jarrett Schachter, told people on the Discord that they're ignorant assholes if they believe that AI was used in the production of that trailer. I think you already know where this is going. Responding to Discord users who continued to claim it was AI, Jarrett Schachter replied, "It's literally not. Sorry, guys, your wet dream is wrong. Dead fucking wrong." And then a community manager in the Running with Scissors Discord told one member that they were an R slur for believing that generative AI was used. I think you can see where this is going, right? The developer at Goon Swarm Games started to post work in progress files and all this other stuff and saying, oh, we got these layered, PSDs with layers on, and we can confirm that, that like none of this was made by AI. All of this was used by, this was made by human hands. And so the developer was out there defending the work and saying, no, this was all made by people. And this was speaking to PC Games N. The N is for nah. I don't know what the N is for. Any mistakes or rough spots in those files are being misinterpreted as a proof of AI, but they simply reflect the normal human art creation process. Then the game got canceled. And 2 statements have been released. 3 statements, in fact. They've started sending a bunch of emails with statements and updated statements and new statements and all this stuff. Running with Scissors, the Postal people, put out a statement. After revealing Postal Bullet Paradise, a title Running with Scissors was planning on publishing but not developing, we've been overwhelmed with negative responses from our concerned Postal community. The strong feedback from them is that elements of the game are very likely AI generated and thus has caused extreme damage to our brand and our company reputation. We've always been and will be transparent with our community. Our trust in the development team is broken. Therefore, we've killed the project. We have a lot of good things coming. Some you know and some you don't. We'd like to, of course, apologize to anyone who felt insulted in the heat of the moment, and we thank you for raising concerns at the time. As for those who specifically sent us death threats, the apologies do not apply. Funny. It's funny. Then the developer said, we're shutting down the studio. Goon Swarm Games put out a thing saying that the whole studio is gone now. And it's all your fault. No, okay. We shut down the studio. Our project and everything we built over the past 6 years was canceled in just a few days. Our studio was mistakenly accused of using AI-generated art in our games, and every attempt to clarify our work only escalated the situation. In the last few hours, we received a large number of threats, insults, and mockery, which pushed us towards a very difficult decision. We're truly sorry for the artists who put their soul into this and supported our studio, only to face false AI accusations. It's tough to pour so much energy into a game and end up caught in the middle of an AI war by accident. We've decided to shut down the studio and end all future activities. Thank you for being with us. Stay strong. Play games. see where this is going, right? That was December 5th. The very next day, the studio posted this. We want to start with a sincere apology to everyone affected by this situation, the community, our partners, and especially the artists who supported us. The last few days have been overwhelming. As a small studio suddenly pushed into the spotlight, we reacted emotionally and defensively. The accusations came as a shock, and we needed time to breathe, look at everything calmly, and understand what truly happened. After taking that time and conducting an internal review, we agree with your criticism. The promo art does appear to include or be influenced by AI-generated material. We collaborated with external artists for years and never saw any signs of this. The layered PSDs always looked legitimate within our internal pipeline, which is why our initial reaction was to protect our team and defend our innocence. We understand now that your concerns were valid, and we take responsibility for not catching this earlier. We also want to stress that this issue relates only to the promo art and does not concern the real artists who worked on the gameplay, visuals, assets, and other content. Many of them have nothing to do with this situation, yet they have been receiving threats, harassment, and hatred. This is deeply unfair, and we hope this message helps protect them. Their work is real, and it deserves respect. We previously announced the closure of the studio, but even in this state, we feel responsible for the outcome. As far as our remaining resources allow, we will replace all disputed promo art across our projects with pieces created entirely by human artists. It will take time, but we will do it. We again apologize to everyone who was harmed or affected by this situation. We never intended to mislead anyone, and our earlier statements reflected what we honestly believed in the moment. So, yeah. So there was AI, the stuff that people were complaining about AI stuff, and they said no, and everyone in the process dug in their heels as hard as they could, and said some really nasty shit to their community about the accusations. Turns out there was AI in there. Over the weekend, I received another statement, which I believe this to be the final statement on this at this time. The email says, the following statement can be attributed to Vince Desi, founder of Running with Scissors. Following our statement on Friday, Running with Scissors would like to share an update. While we needed to cut ties with Goon Swarm Games on Friday and state the reason for doing so, our broken trust, we still wanted to give Goon Swarm the time and space to be transparent about what had occurred. After sharing a tweet on Friday that got more than 8.5 million views, which denied they had used AI and were closing the studio, on Saturday, Goon Swarm Games issued a follow-up tweet acknowledging the use of AI and apologizing. We wish them all the best as we both move forward in our separate ways. Running with Scissors has always operated with an unwavering commitment to the truth and transparency. That's, yeah. When I only accept postal games from people who are dedicated to the truth and transparency. We look forward to continuing to support our fans and expand on the postal universe played by millions. What a fucking mess. What a fucking mess. I don't think I have ever met any of the people involved with Postal. They have always just seemed so unpleasant. I don't know. Again, it's the people that are like, it's like they've got that attitude about, man, we're fucking edgy and fuck you if you don't like it, and like we're gonna curse and use slurs and like okay. Why? All right. What? Why? Because fuck you. That's why. I don't know. It's just like the attitude that they have tried to cop for all of these years is a shame, because they seem like fucking complete dipshits who refuse to fucking age or grow up or take any. This is a rare case of them taking some responsibility for their actions. But even then, it's like, oh, it's the developer. And then even the developer's like, it's the promo art. It's these external artists, like just trying to pass the buck as hard as they fucking can, and then canceling the project and going like, well, you guys made a lot of stink about it, and we had to kill it because there was too much stink. The problem is not a problem. That's not the main problem. The problem is the way you acted. Like, it's really weird. It's just a lot of really gross fucking finger pointing. And, you know, it's Postal, right? What are you going to do? Like if you go back and look at the very nature of Postal and what it is supposed to be, it makes sense that these people are that way, right? Why would they be anything less? But again, I thought Postal 1 was like an interesting thing when it came out, in terms of the like going postal concept, mass shooter and all of that stuff. Like, they managed to make actually kind of a decent video game under the surface of that shit. And it was compelling because there were not a lot of things that were doing that then. And I just like the voice line, the specific voice line from Postal 1 where he says, "Only my guns understand me," I thought was pretty good. And there's a button where you can just turn the gun on yourself at any time and kill yourself, which I think is a necessary mechanic to have in a Postal game. But then, I don't know, when they tried to like continue to make them, when it became like something of a phenomenon and they're just like, now we got Gary Coleman and we got this, and you're like, shut the fuck up. For a while, they were posting game reviews on their site by like the outlaw game reviewer. This guy's, it's just, the whole thing was just like, shut the fuck up. Speaking of shut the fuck up, Skyrim is out on the Nintendo Switch 2. Shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me? No, of course not. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Anniversary Edition is out today on Nintendo Switch 2. If you own Skyrim Anniversary Edition on Switch 1, you will get these updates for free. If you own the non-anniversary edition of Skyrim on Switch 1, you can upgrade to Anniversary Edition for $20, and then you will get the Anniversary Edition for both Switch 1 and 2. Or if you don't own any version of Skyrim on any form of Switch, you can buy it now for $59.99. Bethesda has listed some enhancements over the Switch 1 release, which the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Anniversary Edition takes advantage of the Nintendo Switch 2's impressive hardware with enhanced resolution and DLSS anti-aliasing, improved load times, optimized performance, mouse control support, motion controls, and amiibo support. And you can find the master. This was in the previous. This was in other Anniversary Edition for Switch 1, if I remember right. But you can find like Zelda stuff in it. So it says, this is explore the throat of the world in game to find these items: Master Sword, Hylian Shield, and Champion's Tunic. Oh, I'll explore the throat of the world. You people are sick. Speaking of sick, Assassin's Creed Black Flag has been long rumored to be remade for some reason, and PEGI of PEGI 18 fame has rated a product called Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. Resynced is maybe my new favorite fake like word that it means a remaster, but we're gonna not use it because we're gonna use kind of an in-world word for it. And yeah, I remember thinking Black Flag was a decent game, but something about like every bit of this news about like we're bringing back Black Flag, I have just met with just a raging indifference. I just can't. I just like, yeah, okay, sure. The boat one, huh? Are you gonna do the boat? All right, I guess, man. It's just there's something about that. I don't. I don't know. Like I guess it would be hard to get truly excited for a remake of an Assassin's Creed game an old Assassin's Creed game, period. But this one in particular is just like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know. Ubisoft hasn't had the best of luck with fucking pirate games and boats lately, so I don't know. So maybe this is this meant to wash the taste of Skull and Bones out of everyone's mouth and go like, put out the boat game people liked, put it out again, resynced, baby. Maybe, I don't know. It will be rated PEGI 18 according to the PEGI website. Gamatsu.com, who is one of the sites reporting this, posits that maybe this is something we would see at the Game Awards. That's happening this Thursday with multiple leaks out there. Maybe this is something that ends up showing up there. The Game Awards, by the way, yes, they are this Thursday. There's been the normal amount of, like people going like, this award show is not this and it is that, and there's this and that, that it gets every year, which I guess is unsurprising. I think that's just going to happen every meet. Yeah, Phil Bosch says, what could the stone mean? I thought I saw someone saying that it might be a divinity-related thing. That there was some divinity trademark going around that included something that looked like the stone. So it is probably something related to divinity. Which, cool. I don't know. Yeah. In terms of like games we're gonna see at this thing, yeah, maybe the Assassins stuff shows up. Tomb Raider is going to be there. They've said that you will see what is going on with Tomb Raider. That's been in the works for a bit. I believe Resident Evil, I think they said, was going to be there also, right? Of course, Half-Life 3 will be. Oh, that is. I don't know. I don't know what else. I don't know that I have any other. Big kind of foregone knowledge about what's going to be there. I'm pretty sure that Control is going to show up there. I don't know that 100%, but I feel relatively confident that that there's going to be a Control thing there. Tomb Raider, man. I don't know how to feel. I never know how to feel about new Tomb Raider games. When they did that reboot initially, I remember being like, God, they're rebooting Tomb Raider, but Tomb Raider was always so terrible. And then it turns out they went and made really good Tomb Raider games finally. Like, hey, finally, after years of it being one of the most popular franchises in the world and all these magazine covers and, oh, Lara Croft is so pretty and we're making movies and blah, blah, they finally decided to go and make one of the games good. Who would have thought, man? And that set of games were real cool. And now rebooting again, who knows, right? I don't know what ends up what that will end up being, but that could be interesting. We'll see. But yeah, that's kind of it for the. I don't know that I have any other like big insights into what's definitely going to be the Game Awards or whatever. I just always feel the need to kind of reiterate. People often look at the Game Awards and go like, I can't believe it's not more serious and that it doesn't have more respect for the awards and like, I get it to some degree. But I think the other thing, like the comparison points are all wrong. Right? People go like, oh, it's one big ad. And you're like, yeah. I feel like, you want this thing to be the Oscars. And that's fine, but this was never my comparison point when I look at the Game Awards and I think about it in terms of like a broadcast award show that they want to try to get people to watch and want to make like a good compelling broadcast for a wide swath of people. I look at like the VMAs, the MTV Video Music Awards, or maybe a closer point of comparison would be the MTV Movie Awards. That it is meant to be an entertaining show. It is meant to be like oh yeah, there's some awards and then we got some announcements and we got some, it's kind of just meant to be like a variety show and there's some awards and I kind of look at it in that light, and I think that like if you're expecting it to be more than that, I think I don't know what you think you're going to move. Like you would be better served just by like okay, well I care about the BAFTAs, or I care about the GDC awards, or I care about the DICE awards. Like there are other awards shows that are done and voted on by people who make games, which if you are trying to have the Oscars as your comparison point, that is sort of what you're looking for, Like this is not that. It is not ever going to be that, And it's a better balance than it was when Spike TV was running the show, because at least the guests often feel like they have some real connection to the material. Sometimes that connection is superfluous and advertising based, right? I mean, I think that stuff is kind of, like there are ads that are part of the show. There are bits of that show that you look at and go like, yeah, this is like a sponsored bit here. Like Amazon paid to have the Fallout people on stage, I'm sure, or whatever, right? When it comes to these shows. And different people come to it for different reasons and whatever else. But yeah, like to me, this is just like, this is the style of, and as a kid, those were the awards shows that I didn't give I don't give a fuck about the Grammys. I care about music, but I do not give a fuck about the Grammys. But I used to really enjoy watching and cared about the MTV Video Music Awards. In terms, and that was not a reverent show. That was not a show that devoted a ton of time to speeches and all of that sort of stuff. But like, it was, there were other awards shows for that. And so I think that I just like I get the criticism. I think some of it's I think most of it is perfectly valid, but I would also say like you're acting like this is the only award show that exists, and that's just not the case. And so like you would be better served by focusing on some of those other shows and finding ways to make those shows better and finding ways to make those shows more respected and more known by a wider group of people. Yeah, it's like there have been times in my life where I have loved movies. Not as much these days, but I never once watched the Oscars. The only time I watched the Oscars is when I moved in with those college girls and they said, we want to have an Oscars party, and that means you need to dress up. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we're going to put on our ball gowns and we're going to watch the Oscars. I said, what? Okay. I'm like coming home from work or something, so I'm not going to be all dressed up. Like, what the fuck are you? All right, great. What? And then after that, we all went out to a bar, and they had a big cake that they bought for their Oscar party. And after we got back from the bar, they forgot the cake and remembered it was there. And then one of them took the cake out of the fridge and immediately dropped it on the floor because everyone was fucking wasted. And that's the only time I've ever watched the Oscars. And it was against my will. So, I don't know. But like, I have watched the MTV Movie Awards and stuff because sometimes those shows are fun. So, I don't know. I think if you're looking for some kind of broad and deep and respectful industry acknowledgement, obviously you're not going to get that here. It's just not what the show is. It's never going to be that. The reasons for that, I feel like, have been debated to death. And I would just kind of look at it as like, there are other award shows out there that take that stuff more seriously. And I like watching the speeches at those. And this is like a fun watch from a like, let's see what's what the big announcements are, and hey, let's see who wins. I feel like, again, I'll say, I have been a judge for these things for a while now, which is not a, I don't know, like that doesn't mean I'm deeply involved with it. It means I send 2 emails and go, all right, let's see what happens. And then a bunch of stuff wins that I look at and go like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Given who I think, who I think of as the larger judging pool and stuff, like you can handicap these pretty easily and just go like, what are games that people probably had time for that you think they might have voted for? And, do I think that the best games win at the Game Awards? I don't know. The best games are always the ones that I nominate. So I don't know. Nir Mahan asks, are voters actually finishing all of the games that are nominated? Probably not. I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of people, there's a relatively large judging pool of people and outlets. And, like, remember, like it used to be kind of relatively limited to people who were journalists. And the idea was like, okay, it's like going to be an award ceremony that like all of the different publications and stuff are a part of this thing. And that's kind of interesting because it's not just their awards, it's a larger. And as that has become more diffused and, as those people have scattered, there are a lot of people that you would call creators. Like there's just a wider swath of people that are invited to vote. And you can go look and see, on the website, I think they've got a big list of a lot of the places that are outlets for this thing. And I take it as seriously as I can, for what it is. And on the awards end of it and kind of that's that, I don't really know. I over time, I think that pool has become a lot more diverse from a lot more countries around the world. And so a lot of that stuff has changed, but also, like I look at it and go like, like there were games that I nominated that were like not games that a lot of people talked about. And it's very easy to like, as I'm filling out the form, I'm like, well, I doubt that most of the other judges have even heard of this fucking game, let alone played it. So, it's not something that, and so I severely doubt it's going to make its way through. And so I think, you end up with that, kind of vague popularity contest sort of thing because it's voting based. It's not, hey, we're discussing this and coming out with what we think is the right answer, which I think is as a publication is the only way to do it. If you're running just a single publication and you're doing like voting based awards with your staff, like why fucking bother? Like who cares? Like show me the individual people's lists and don't waste my time. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's it's always interesting to see this stuff and people try to ruminate and figure out what conspiracy theory they're going to latch onto this year about the award show. And I think the answer is like way less interesting than people want. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's a thing. It's meant to be. It's meant to be a show that kind of moves along. It's meant to be a show that has some musical guests. It's meant to be something that has like more of a variety show thing. If you want to know why the categories are what they are, I'm sure that's probably something, I don't like. I think the categories are there to kind of reward companies across multiple genres. If you have, like, let's say if you were a company who was primarily known for fighting games, if you didn't have a best fighting game award, why would you give a fuck about the game awards? Because a fighting game is never going to win game of the year, because when you put this shit out to such a diverse group of judges, most of them don't play fighting games. And so it's going to take a big thing for it to break through. But best fighting as a category is always dumb. Like this year, it's like two re-releases or compilations of old games. It's a really ridiculous list of games that get nominated, because there aren't that many fighting games that come out in a year for that to be like a really strong category. And so I always pushed, it's part of why I wanted to get rid of genre-based categories across the board. But if you're trying to fill a show in a way where you're like, oh, well, remember, there's, the thing that award shows that are not the Oscars will do is they will say, come to our show, you're going to win an award. You should be here to accept it. And so I wouldn't be shocked if some of these categories, because I've given feedback to, espousing my views on genre-based awards. It's like, hey, I think you should really axe these categories. That feedback has not made its way into the show. And I don't think it will, because I this is something that I've seen other publications that treated genre awards this way, because like, well, everyone wants to feel like they have an opportunity to win an award, and some of these companies are, potentially advertisers, and when they get butthurt if they feel like they aren't even potentially, eligible for a nomination, and so on and so forth. So those are the only dots I would try to connect on that front. And it's not necessarily like, hey, we're definitely going to give you a win here. It's more like, hey, we've created a situation where there are categories that you might win. Which again, I think a ton of award shows do that exact thing. And it's part of what, that's part of why I don't like the genre-based categories. Even as someone like it's hard, because I want to have an environment where a fighting game can be honored. It should be. Fighting games are great. Driving games are another great example of like, these are kind of genre hits that don't break out of their genre. You care about that thing or you don't, and it's rare for one of them to ascend to the main category of Game of the Year. And so some of these genres that get short shrift as a result of like, oh, there's just a lot of people who don't play those games. I was in rooms full of GameSpot editors for a decade where we argued this stuff out. And there were like 2 to 3 of us on staff that cared about fighting games. And so it became that uphill battle, because we weren't doing votes, where to get a fighting game into some of these categories, you had to really fucking push for it, just because most of the people hadn't fucking played it. And that's not a condemnation of them. No one can play every game. It's why you do this as a staff. It's why you come together and have conversations, is so you can compare notes across all this stuff and try to come to the right answer for your group of people. This represents, it might not 100% represent every single person here on every single category, but as a staff, collectively, we feel good about this. And it's why the conversations were always, like, can we feel good about this? Is this the right winner? Can we accept this as a winner? Can we accept this as a nominee, and stuff like that? But again, when you just boil it down to just voting and whatever else, like, that becomes a very different thing. If it's just a straight vote, which it is, and then 10% of it comes from fan voting, which, all right, sure. Whatever. It's a situation where certain genres are never going to rise above that bar, because there are just people who don't play those games. Like, it's rare that I'm going to care enough about a traditional console RPG to the degree that I think it belongs in a Game of the Year category, personally speaking. It's just the nature of things, right? Not everyone plays every genre. Not every, I can't say, like, maybe there was some turn-based strategy game that came out this year that fucking blew everyone's minds, and but 12 people played it, and maybe it's truly the best game that came out this year, but no one will ever know, Like, I think that there's just parts of that are inherently impossible to, like, nail 100% all of the time, right? And so I look at the awards of just like, it's a cross-section of games that rose above a certain bar to be noticed. So inherent popularity, that they got played in the first place, combined with quality. And that quality certainly goes on top. But, if some of these games came out and just like flew under the radar and no one really talked about them or whatever, like, they probably will not get widespread enough support amongst the wide group of judges to make it into these categories. And so I think, judges with more niche tastes, or, that are more interested in kind of smaller games, like, there's no situation for you to make a case for that game and go to the other judges and say, no, you fucking idiots, like, stop it. This game is the fucking, like, and that's fine. That's just the nature of those awards. And I think if you know that going in, which they're not shy about saying how the awards are picked, you go like, okay, it's much easier to see how the picks are what they are, I think, when you look at that, especially speaking as someone who has done this the other way for a very long time. You go like, man, it's why in any of those game of the year conversations when people go like, why don't we just vote? The answer is always fucking no. Like, that's a waste of fucking time. Like, if we were going to vote, we could have done this in 5 minutes. We could have filled out a form and went home. Is that what you want? You know, like, it's a waste in that specific context. For this award show, I think it makes perfect sense. But again, you need to look at the awards with all of that in mind. And I think a lot of the choices for nominees and everything makes a ton of sense. With maybe one or two outliers where you go like, oh, well, it would have been nice to see this here or what have you. But like, generally speaking, you look at it and you see how things end up where they end up and you go like, yep. And that's it. You don't need to spend that much more time. You don't need to, like, there does not need to be another think piece about the Game Awards. You just don't need to do it. There's 3 templates for it. And every year it's just you rotate through the templates about like, here's the thing and like, all right, yeah, sure, I guess. You should just watch the BAFTAs. Go get your golden joysticks or, you know, like, or whatever. Like, there's just other award shows that are better suited for the thing that you're looking for. Let's get into some emails. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Let's take our final ad break and then we will get into the emails. I forgot about that one. Virtual private networks. A lot of people think that they don't need a VPN. You know, they think like, oh, well, I'm everything I'm doing is on the up and up. And no, man, it's not just about that. It's about all kinds of security scenarios, making sure that your information is encrypted and safe. NordVPN encrypts your online traffic, protecting your online activity from third parties and prying eyes, so you can browse and work and do everything safer on the internet. What that means is no one can intercept your stuff in the middle. NordVPN encrypts all of that traffic and tunnels it in a way that basically lets you seem like you're coming from somewhere you're not. You know, if your home IP address, and you don't want to expose your home IP address to nefarious actors that are going to try to DDoS the Quake server you're running, run it through a tunnel if you want. NordVPN can help you run all of that stuff through a tunnel, and appearing to be from somewhere else as more than just kind of security concerns here. You can also access things that are regionally restricted in some cases. This is handy in situations where, let's say, you wanted to subscribe to a wrestling service and watch some professional wrestling without all of those commercials. You're willing to pay for. I'm willing to pay for it. I'm willing to pay a monthly fee to watch wrestling without the commercials. And so, but that's not available in the United States. But it is available in the United Kingdom. So you flip on that VPN, you say, hey, oi, governor, I'm here for I'm the big daddy, and they're going to wallop each other. They're going to give it a real good one. And then they go, yeah, you seem British enough. Come on in. Come on in. It's nice. It's real nice. You can keep multiple devices safe with one account. NordVPN lets you stay logged in on 10 different devices. That includes, you can even set this up at the router level and protect your entire house all at once. This is something you can use to, again, appear to be coming from some other part of the world, or protect your IP address in situations where it needs to be protected. They also have Threat Protection Pro, so they're scanning downloaded files for malware, blocking ads and intrusive web trackers, detecting phishing links and stuff like that. Nord is really a multifaceted service ready for you. To get the best discount on your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Jeff Gerstmann. This link will give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Check it out. NordVPN. Okay, podcast@guard.bike. That's the email address. Lysandus writes in and says, do you think Microsoft is crazy enough to create a new AI-powered Kinect connected to the Xbox Series Copilot or whatever the next one might be called? This seems like a dumb idea, but as a software engineer, I get to see the dumb shit people are sticking AI into every day, and I wouldn't put it past a marketing department to think it up. What would it even do? I guess learn how you speak and look better than the last Kinect, among other unnecessary things? Have a nice day. Sure, no, but yes. I mean, it does seem like they are going to continue to push into AI stuff. It seems like that when whatever the next Xbox is, it will probably come out before Microsoft has completely given up on AI shit, before that bubble has completely popped or whatever. They will probably still be at it to some degree. And so you could see them making some kind of weird mistake. I don't necessarily think it needs to be hardware, though, as much as it could just be a microphone. I don't think necessarily you need a camera and motion controls and whatever else. When you think about the dumb shit AI devices that companies have been putting out so far, a lot of them have been like personal devices, like strapped to your body. And it's like, it's fucked, man. The idea that people would hear about this and go, oh, that sounds like something I would want. I mean, it seems like a pretty small number of people, but also just at the level of like the people making this, you're like, really? You're asking me to wear a wire and then asking me to trust you that you're never going to get hacked in a way that reveals every single conversation I've ever had that you're storing on some fucking server somewhere? You're asking me to trust you with everything I do or say, whether it's my location, because you're probably tracking my location through this device, whether it's the open microphone that I'm talking into all the time so that I can, just go back and reference a conversation I had earlier in the day. Like, you're asking me to wear a fucking wire and trust that you're not going to sell all that data to advertisers so that I get like all the worst fucking targeted ads in the fucking world? Hey, we heard you say butt fuck 9 times yesterday, and we've got a deal for you. Preparation H. And Justin McElroy shows up, and you're like, okay, maybe I am into this. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, sure. So given this hellish future that, that we are, that people are trying to foist upon us, yeah, man, I could see Microsoft very easily being like, we've got a home assistant. We've cooked up an assistant and the microphone is always there. And you can just say, hey, Cortana, what the fuck? Book me a plane ticket. Or, like, hey, Cortana, what's my email say? And then your Xbox will read you your email, or your Xbox will send a message to this person and ask if they want to play Perfect Dark tonight. And then send a smiley emoji because we all know Perfect Dark got canceled. And then the Xbox thinks about it for a while and goes, oh, I can't help with that. Because you mentioned Perfect Dark and they can't handle the shame. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I could see some nightmare scenario where they do try to foist some of this bullshit onto people. That would be a way for the Xbox to be further tied into Microsoft's corporate interests in ways that get it some additional marketing push from the mothership. And I in that environment of a company that is like trying to integrate AI into everything they do because it's a nightmare, because they're run by a nightmare person, and he thinks that this has to fucking drive the whole company forward and the world and everything. Yeah, I could see a scenario where you go like, yeah, we put a bunch of AI in this thing just so Nadella goes, good. We're gonna own the living room this holiday season, or whatever stupid shit. But how would that interact with the game? Like that being a new Kinect with a camera and everything, I think is unlikely. Even as the next Playground seems to be picking up steam in the Black Friday sales, I don't see Microsoft going down that road again. Because they would want something that they can just pack into every console and have like not be a thing. The thing with the Kinect was such a, people were worried about the camera and the security of it. And I don't think that's changed so much that people would just accept it now. But if you told them there was a microphone in their thing, they'd be like, oh, like Alexa or whatever. And maybe they could be convinced that would be a normal thing. So sure. Yes, I don't think that's a good idea. And I don't think it's something that would necessarily help games or push games forward, but I could absolutely see Microsoft trying to like cram some sort of personal assistant type bullshit into the next Xbox. Specifically as a, like as a way to get the company to care about it more and promote it more and sign off on the expenditure to make it and all of that other shit, right? Sam from Portland writes this, says, recently it was announced that we will finally have an English translation of Sega Gaga for the Dreamcast. So I ask you, what are some remaining untranslated titles you would like to see? And I don't know. That's exciting. I had not heard that Sega Gaga was, because there have been fan translations of they've tried to do it for years and run into various stumbling blocks, but a lot of time has passed and people have gotten a lot better at hacking these games apart and cramming English language into them. And so I guess I'm not surprised that someone finally took it on and worked to make it happen. That is one of the last big ones for me. I can't think of anything else that is on my list. That was always kind of the white whale. That was always kind of the, like you heard that game was really funny and you really wanted to see it and like all of that. So some people in chat saying Racing Lagoon. I thought Racing Lagoon got a translation. Tokameki Memorial keeps coming up. Soccer Wars. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Like, I don't know. Yeah, those would be fine. I'm not especially interested in those games, but those make sense as games that people should translate if they have not been already. To be honest, once the Tobal 2 dungeon mode got translated, I felt like I was already kind of playing with house money. Like, man, great. I can finally understand what the hell is going on here. This is awesome. This is the best. Let's see. Maybe we can take one more here. Maz writes in and says, when did shovelware stop being seen as bad for business? Nintendo reputably were somewhat against shovelware in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, with the example of Atari often being trotted out as a cautionary tale. That changed with the Wii in a drastic way and seems to have continued through to the Switch. Why do you think that is? I think there's two reasons for that. One is because the Wii was very popular and people wanted to make a lot of games for it. The Wii was also a, casual, friendly kind of device for people who didn't play a lot of games. And so it made sense that you saw a lot of, games that were not for the core audience of players out on the Wii because of the how successful it was and the ways in which it was successful. Like, it's not shocking that Nintendo would allow a lot of those games on the Wii. Meanwhile, other platforms were, there are a lot of fucked up garbage PS2 games. Outside of Nintendo, there was kind of not a lot of that. But I think the reason that's continued through to the Switch is I think that self-publishing, a lack of self-publishing used to create a certain, it's gatekeeping at that point, because you needed to find a publisher who was reputable enough to be publishing on that platform and get them to buy the publishing rights to your game and publish your game and all of that. And so smaller studios were often relegated to just we make shareware games on the PC and that's all we can make because we can't get onto these other platforms because there's no room. All these games need to be burned to disc and sold for $50. This game is not a $50 game. There's no room for us on this platform right now. And so as games went digital and digital downloads became a bigger deal and a bigger piece of the pie, and as companies started to finally make that adjustment to where, you makers of these smaller games, you can just publish the games yourself. The bar to entry has become much, 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 much lower for getting onto these storefronts. And sometimes getting approved as a developer for the Switch is a bit of a blockade. And that's, how big that blockade is, I think, depends on where in the world you live. But no one wants to be a measure of quality when they are running these platforms. Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft are in the same boat. They don't want to be in the position of saying, we think your game is bad and we're not going to allow it to come out, because they don't want to be an arbiter of that level of quality. And so everything they're set up to measure and judge is based on those rigid set of rules. Like, if you push A, does it, if you're not logged into a profile and you push A, does it do this and ask you to sign into a profile? Is there a button where you can hit it and sign into a different profile? If you're like, it's all the regulations and TCRs and TRCs, depending on which company you are. It's following all of those rules. It's following all the press A to start rules and using the right color for your A button to match the color on the controller, and and your X button must look like this. You can't just write X in the font. You need to get the PlayStation circle with the X and put it there. Like you need to have those sorts of things in your game for it to ship on this platform. That's the sort of stuff that they're measuring. Nintendo, there's still a process, but ultimately, and there are still regulations about what they'll accept and won't accept from just a content perspective, right? Like the developer of Horses could probably not get that game published on any of the console platforms. But ultimately, that's what changed is, the Nintendo's restrictions were monopolistic. To the point where, like, the legality of them, I think, was in question, because Nintendo worked on a slot-based system, sort of like early Xbox Live Arcade, but and again, the NES days of Nintendo were marked by them saying, you can only publish this many games per year. Hey, Konami, you can only publish this many games per year in the States. And so make sure you pick the right ones. And so Konami said, cool, man, yeah, we're on it. And then also, we started another label called Ultra Games, and we're going to put some games out there too, because Ultra Games is a separate entity, and so therefore it gets to publish more games here. And eventually, you had LJN and Acclaim. And so, in the 16-bit era, this would continue in some slightly different ways, where you had where Acclaim had Flying Edge and LJN as different labels. And so a lot of Genesis releases would get marked as Flying Edge, and a lot of Nintendo releases would get marked as LJN. And so it was sort of a weird, all that shit was just weird. And all of it was artificial. And all of it was set up to, it was set up so that major companies could get the kind of handshake end around, like, oh yeah, Ultra Games, yeah, you guys can publish games too. Whereas smaller companies that couldn't do that were not getting any favors, right? And so it was a system built on favors that they eventually did away with. But the bar then became hey, it's really expensive to get a dev kit. It's really expensive to buy a run of cartridges or CDs or DVDs or whatever. And so that became the restriction for smaller developers that you might see as making shovelware or lower quality games. And all of those barriers were thrown to the side as digital distribution became a thing. You have a lot of these platforms, being like PlayStation and Xbox at least are being x86 based. And so, making games, porting games, a lot of that stuff has changed and become a little more easy to deal with. Not that it's automatic, but, a little more easy, a little easier to confront as a smaller team. And all of that adds up to, more games on the platform. You could argue that it's too many games. You could argue that someone needs to step in and do something about this, because I look at it as you see games that are knockoffs. You see games that are weird, trying to cash in on a trend, and suddenly 20 of them show up on the eShop. And, there's just a lot of really fucked shit that happens out there. But as I've said before, I don't really know how you stop it without also stifling the creativity of smaller teams that are trying to play by the rules and make good games. Without stepping in and saying we only publish the good games, and then you're in a position where you've got developers saying, Nintendo put us out of business because they didn't like our game, or you couldn't, they didn't like the way the jump felt in our game, and now they wouldn't let us publish there, and so now we're just fucked. And that's it's a bad position for everyone to be in. To have that sort of, imagine, and there are already a lot of ex-game journalists and game reviewers that are working at places like Sony and Nintendo in positions where they're able to kind of judge some of the third-party stuff and working in those departments, but it's not necessarily purely in a, hey, we're not going to allow this through for qualitative reasons. It's sort of a different thing. But imagine if that was sort of the bar you had to clear, then how do you draw up review guidelines internally for you're like, here's what we think is good and here's what we think is bad. Like that, is a different reviewer. Apple used to run into some of this stuff where like, we made a build of our game specifically to butter up to the ex-IGN guys who work in Apple's game department because we want them to choose us for editor's choice. And so we made it a certain way, like you would hear stories like that. And I don't know how effective that was or wasn't, but you would hear, they would try to do it. They go like, yeah, it's all these guys. So they're like ex-IGN Nintendo guys are now running Apple's like approval process. And so, we tried to make our game this way for this reason and this way. And you're like, this seems ridiculous also. So I don't think there's a great solution, like a systemic solution to these issues. It's a very hard problem to solve. That's going to do it for the show. Thanks everybody for writing in. podcast@guard.bike once again is the email address. And we'll be back with another edition of the podcast next Tuesday. I'll be back with you on Wednesday. That's tomorrow, if you're watching live. With a live stream, we'll do something live. I don't know what. And then Thursday, we will watch the Game Awards at night, or in the afternoon into the night, I suppose. And then Friday, I am out of town. So there will be no stream on Friday. And maybe Thursday, I'll try to get some movie. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out this TV situation. I don't know what's going to happen. But I will see you either tomorrow or next week. Or hey, how about both? I'll see you then.